Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Market Open. It is Friday, February 28th. It is the last day of February. We are heading into March tomorrow, and we are done with what has been a month that was good for the first 2 weeks and then not that fun for the last 2 weeks. But we are ending out the final day of February. We got a lot of stuff to talk about today. We had a ton of stuff happen overnight, actually, particularly in regards to Bitcoin. We saw crypto really get hurt last night. Bitcoin going below 80,000 for the first time since November 11th, 2024. Bitcoin currently right now in the pre-markets is at 81,000. Got a little bit of a rebound because of the PCE data, which we're going to get into in a second. And then obviously last night, if you were on the market close, we discussed NVIDIA. NVIDIA right now reaching a new low in the pre-markets at 118. Last night, it kind of ended at 120. We'll see if there's any rebound at all at 9:30 when the markets open. Right now in the pre-markets, everything's pretty bloody, even with the PCE data that came out. And look, it's just a crappy way to end the month. Fear and greed is at extreme fear at this point. We're going to see in March if we get a bounce. We're going to see today if we get a bounce, or if today as options expire, Fridays tend to sell off. If we get a little bit more volatility to the downside, given how much volatility we've already seen over the past couple weeks. And we'll keep going from there and discuss all the other different issues and macro piece of data we have today. I think we'll get started immediately into PCE data. Let's get into that. That came out about 15 minutes ago. And all I can say is thank goodness. Thank goodness. Because this is, I forgot this morning we even had PCE. Like I woke up and at 8:30, I was like, oh, wait. Today's important. We have PCE. And then I just checked it immediately, and I didn't have time to kind of prepare myself to be surprised or upset if there was any anomalies in the data. Thankfully, there wasn't. January PCE rose 2.5% year over year in line with expectations, which was good. Not that it's good that it's rising inflation. That is kind of inevitable. But what's good is that it's in line with expectations. A lot of this is just based on how the market's pricing it. And then core PCE, which is what the Fed really cares about because it takes into account a lot of different factors that regular PCE doesn't, came in at 2.6% year over year. Again, an increase year over year, but in line with expectations. There were some economists that thought this number would be closer to 2.8. And if it was 2.8, I think this pre-market would be a little worse than what we're seeing right now. So the fact that it came in at 2.5 and 2.6 is actually not too bad. And, hopefully inflation continues to stay at these levels and not necessarily increase as dramatically as it was a couple months ago. So that's what we got with PCE. Kind of a nothing burger because the results were good. If it was worse, then it would be a something burger. But for now, PCE seems like it's not that big of a deal. And as long as it continues to not be this big of a deal, and if CPI and PPI end up coming down a little bit, hopefully over the next few months, then we'll see what further happens with regards to inflation. So that's the PCE data we got as we get into the market open. Let's take a look at what's going on in the pre-markets, and then we'll get into some of the segments we have. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. I think we'll talk about Rklb in a second, but Rklb right here, kind of the story of the day yesterday, down 15.8%, $16.68. Again, it sucks, dude. What really sucks about Rklb is that they reported on a day that was just not a fun day to report. I mean, the type of crash we saw in NVIDIA yesterday, and we'll get into why, or at least my theories on why we're seeing this volatility in NVIDIA, that took the whole market down. NVIDIA lost about $200 billion in market cap yesterday, basically from 3 to 4 p.m., I would say in about an hour. The majority of the day it was doing okay. It wasn't doing the best. It was doing all right. And then that last hour got flushed out, and that kind of took everything out with it. Now, I do think to an extent a lot of this was algorithmic, like Grab, for example. Grab was at $5. It was up 4% of the day. It was doing great. And in the last 20 minutes, it falls 3%. Like, to me, that's more so algos are taking the entire market down, not people are waking up and saying, hey, let me just sell this in the last 20 minutes. I'm sure there was a part of that, but not the full part. Like the full part, given how violent the downside was towards the last 20 minutes of the day. That to me seemed more algorithmic, primarily driven by NVIDIA. Bitcoin got caught with that as well. Amazon, Google, a lot of these names. I mean, Google got down to 167. Where's Google right now? 168.79 right now in the pre-markets. So everything got hit badly. Robinhood, one of the only stocks that's actually holding up a little bit in the pre-markets, is down 0.92%, which is ironic because Bitcoin took a nasty hit yesterday. So Robinhood continuing to want to have that $50 support, even if it's slightly below 50, and not really getting hit as badly as the other ones. And it makes sense because Robinhood was 65. Now it's at 48. So it already did get hit 31%, and it's kind of normalizing in this range right now. Rklb down about 16%. Amazon's up a little bit in the pre-market. Salesforce down another 1%. Palantir, I'm sorry, folks, but it looks like Palantir wants to go below $80 today. The price action in the pre-market is not conducive to a Palantir that wants to stay above $80. Are you still holding on to your Rklb CSPs? Yes, they expire March 28th, though, so they have a month. And so in a month, if Rklb gets above 22, then we won't get assigned. But if not, then we will get assigned. So yeah, those I'm still holding on to. And I bought 200 shares like at $20.40, I think 2 days ago as well. And so now is going to be a time for me to see how long does this, sort of stock bottom out here. And is this an opportunity to really build out a position? Because I only have 300 shares, right? Is this a time to actually make this 1,000, 2,000 share position? But we're going to see over the next coming weeks kind of how Rklb plays out. In terms of Palantir down 4.84%, it does feel a little... It feels a little violent in terms of the move that's been happening on Palantir. Now, granted, I do think in the broader equity markets, I don't want to say we're bottoming out, but I do want to say when fear and greed gets this bad, when sentiment becomes this bearish, and we're going to talk about sentiment because if you look at some of these sentiment indicators, there's some really interesting charts. It is the worst I've seen in a long time, and particularly it's the worst I've seen coming from retail. And when that happens, you tend to get a bit more of a bottom. So $80.55, could it go below 80? Yeah, I mean, it looks very possible. It's 50 cents away from going below 80. The question is, what is that bottom that it forms, if it does form a bottom in the coming weeks with the broader market? And we're going to find out hopefully in the next couple of weeks. Marathon right here down about 2%. S&P 500 is green in the pre-markets. Again, this has not been a market crash. This has been an individual growth stock crash is what I would say. Palantir, Tesla, Robinhood, Rklb, NVDA, etc. The broader markets, yeah, they're down about 3-4% from the highs, but they are not down in some massive correction territory. And with that PCE data, they continue to go a little bit higher currently right now in the pre-markets. So that is what we have right now as we get into the broader market open. Do you still have your Palantir calls? I never had Palantir calls. I've never, ironically, I've never bought calls on, I think I bought a spread on Palantir right before the Q4 earnings in 2023. And it was up like 50% the day after and I sold it, but I've never actually had calls like leaps on Palantir. So just stock from that perspective. Are you buying more NVIDIA? Yeah. So I bought some more NVIDIA yesterday around 122. If we go down to, I don't know, if we stay at 117, 115 today, I will be buying more NVIDIA. We'll talk more about NVIDIA, but yes, I think the NVIDIA dip again is stupid. We had Steve on the show yesterday for about 2 hours. We talked through this as well. When you look at the numbers, and it's a really funny breakdown. I mean, he compares it to Costco because he has a vendetta against Costco. And when you look at NVIDIA versus Costco, it's insanity, dude. It is insanity, the type of multiples people are willing to pay for Costco versus NVIDIA. And it begs the question, what the hell's going on with retail, or why are investors choosing to allocate capital in a certain way, which I think gets us into our first topic. Let's start with some macro data and let's start with some charts. So this is a chart that's been going around over the past couple of days, or I would say past couple of hours, past 24 hours. That's been very, very interesting when it comes to sentiment. So this is an AA2 members survey. It's one of those surveys that goes around and tries to get a read on what's going on with retail investors. And 61% of retail investors, based on this survey, are bearish. 19% are bullish. We are only 2.5% away from the S&P 500, or 3% away from the S&P's all-time highs. And 60% of the people that are surveyed are bearish. And over the past couple of weeks, you can see it goes 2.5, 2.12, 2.19, 2.26. It's been averaging 45%. And then the week of 2.26, which was this current week, we got up to 60.6%. So when you see something like this, particularly from retail, and why do I know it's retail versus institutional? Well, we looked at the institutional cash. We looked at Bank of America's institutional money managers' cash as a percentage of portfolios. It is at an all-time low at 3.5%. So you can't say institutional money managers are bearish. Maybe they're selling here and there and they're hedging their positions, yada, yada. But you can't say they're bearish because cash is a percentage of their portfolios that they manage. We're talking about hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars. That simply would have to be higher than 3.5%. It would have to be higher than all-time lows in order for you to say, hey, we're keeping cash on the sidelines. Now, Warren Buffett, I would say he's bearish because he has a lot of cash on the sidelines. But the general money manager that's out there, that's probably managing 30, 40 million bucks, a majority of their cash is in the market. So when you look at institutional investors and realize that their money's in the market, and then you see this retail data and that it shows pretty obviously that retail is starting to step out of the market. If you look at any of the Robinhood data on individual equities and you kind of scroll down and you can kind of see if retail is selling or not, there's been a lot of selling from retail on the past couple of weeks. Even as Steve Quirk, the CBO at Robinhood, he went on Yahoo Finance the other day, and he also said our investors are taking their profits when he was talking about the trends that they were seeing within their users. So what does that tell me? Well, that tells me that sentiment has gotten so bad that it's getting to a point where either this extreme fear thing falls off a cliff and it doesn't just become extreme fear. It becomes like sell your house, sell your kidney, just become like scared of everything that's going on. Or we're bottoming out. I think it's one or the other. Because imagine if we were to actually fall 10% on the S&P 500, which would put us around 5,600, 56.5. I mean, I don't know if retail is prepared for that. Because like if people are already selling and so scared of what's happening right now, I think it would get even more aggressive if that happens. Could that happen? Of course. There could be plenty of macro data and variables that can make that happen. But if we're getting to extreme fear and retail is the most bearish it's ever been, and in my opinion, algorithms are controlling the majority of these violent moves up or down, which is really also making retail paper hand even more, right? Because they get scared when something drops $5 after they bought it $5 higher. Yeah, like that could be a recipe for bottoming out. It could also be a recipe for shaking people out of their shares in a world in which there's nothing fundamental for why people need to necessarily be selling. I think there's definitely reasons why people can be taking profits right now. But again, if you're a long-term investor, like, do you sell Rklb down 15%? No, nothing that I saw on that earnings call is a reason to take this thing down 15%. They were a little bit light on the guidance by 10 million. Okay. Like that. That destroys the whole thesis. Not to me. Neutron was not delayed until 2027, like the Bleecker Street short report said. It'll be happening by the second half of 2025. That's pretty bullish to me as well. I mean, like they're 10 cents away from profitability. You can make an argument for why maybe Rklb didn't deserve to be $30. Like I'm all ears for that. Like I can understand valuations were a bit high up there. But to say this thing has to go back to $5, therefore you should sell it at 16. Like I think that's the notion of the market that we're in right now. It's either this extreme fear or extreme skepticism, and it's like, if that's the market that we're in, then that's going to be creating some very interesting dynamics in terms of what the algos do, what retail does, and then who ends up buying these stocks, because someone's going to be buying these stocks. The question is going to be who. Matt says, I'm excited for this market. It's like buying in October 2024 all again. I agree. That is also kind of similar to what the market sentiment looks like as well. Speaking of who's buying these stocks, I mean, money market funds, again, maybe they're not buying right now, but I don't think these money market funds are going to stay at the levels that they're staying at currently right now. $60 billion yesterday was added, or over the past week, to money market funds, 6.97 trillion. So if a Rklb were to get to a $12 or $13, which who knows, we'll see today if that happens, there's $7 trillion on the sidelines that's looking at that. And they're asking themselves, would they rather be in a money market fund collecting 4%, or would they rather get Rklb down 60% from its highs or 70% from its highs? I just think money is going to start to see the absurdness of some of these equity prices if they do become absurd. I think equity prices are bad right now. I don't know if they're absurd, right? Like an absurd equity price on a lot of these names would probably be 10% down even further. Maybe we get it. Maybe we don't. But we're going to have to see how the broader market should interpret this. Amit, should we do a year to date? We'll do that at 9:30. At 9:30, we will do, because we kind of have to do that today, right? Today's February 28th. We'll do it on the market close as well. But yeah, everyone's year to date is probably going to be a little ugly. A little ugly after the month of February, dude. Also in the pre-markets, again, looking at the pre-markets right now, we're not getting any relief. Like that's the thing, even with this PCE data. And that's what's going to make 9:30 interesting. Either we have a nice bounce and it's like, all right, we're chilling out for a little bit, or this thing gets even uglier. Because it's not showing any signs of kind of clearing up currently right now in the pre-markets. Let's hear from Ryan Detrick. He's been someone who's been chronicling the nature of the bull market for the past now. Let's get his thoughts on what he thinks is happening, if this is seasonal, historical, and where he sees the market going later into March.
Ryan Detrick. He's with Carson Group, he's the chief market strategist there. Ryan, explain what's happening right now.
Yeah, good morning. Happy Friday and good riddance to February. So there's a lot of ways we can take this. I'll put it like this. What do we know? You guys start off the show with all the uncertainty, and it's real. We knew coming into this month that February is the worst month on average in a post-election year, right? The second half of February is usually rocky, and I get it. Well, why is that? People want to know why. I'd say I'd rather know than not know, and it's clearly playing out. One more thing. The first quarter of a post-election year, where we are right now, is one of the worst quarters of an entire 4-year presidential cycle. My math is right. There's 16 quarters in a 4-year presidential cycle. This is the second worst one. So I don't think it's shocking to have this choppiness and this frustration. One more comment on this. The last 5 days, the S&P is down over 4%, right? We all know that. We talk about it. As of right now, looking at futures, financials actually are higher the last 5 days. Yesterday, financials were higher, okay? High yield was virtually flat yesterday. The last 5 days, high yield is up, okay? So if this was a true monster under the bed, we think we'd be seeing more weakness across the board, specifically in high yield. We're not seeing that. This kind of reminds me of early August when we had the yen carry trade unwind. Very scary. Market sold off, but the market truly wasn't panicking. And I think it's similar to what we're seeing right now.
Ryan, you think this is more about the calendar than maybe what's emanating from the White House and concern about policies that are coming?
No, I mean, listen, what I think the way to put it is we knew the calendar was a potential warning, especially when you have a 20% gain. The first quarter after that tends to be choppy. The post-election stuff, February, for whatever reason, tends to be choppy. But we also knew this time, call it 2-3 weeks ago, we saw some advanced decline lines, some internals that were getting a little weak. We've seen some of the defensive areas, utilities and staples, kind of take a little bit of leadership. So again, to us, it's why you stick with the diversified portfolio. How have bonds done the last 5 days? Pretty good. Right? I know bonds have struggled greatly, but this is why you stick with a diversified portfolio. But the bottom line, we're still overweight equities. We do not think this is going to spiral out of control. We don't think we're going to see a 10% correction, right now. We think we're pretty close to potential low, as a lot of guests have come on and talked about. There's some reasons, a lot of fear out there. Individual investors, most fearful they've been nearly in history, yet active managers aren't that worried. Reality is, look at the flows, right? There's a lot of outflows from ETFs and mutual funds. We're near that area that we tend to have panic when you're down like 15-20%. We're seeing it 3-4% off the low. So we're pretty close to a low here, we think. And this is just a normal kind of volatility you tend to see in a structural bull market.
So that's Ryan's take on it. I can't say I don't agree with that. Like I really do. It's a structural volatile time that you have in a bull market. And with valuations that got to where they got to, Robinhood at 65, Palantir at 125, HIMS at 73. Yeah, we had a pullback. It's like, all right, we had a pullback. Now, the NVIDIA pullback, we'll talk more about that. That one is a bit more confusing to me because the results were so good. And I think the street is really doubting like the AI trade, along with the fact that the Max 7 is down so much. So they're kind of bucketing them into the Max 7. If the Max 7 aren't going to go up, NVIDIA is not going to go up, et cetera. But in terms of the other growth stocks that got hit badly, they got hit for a reason. And their valuations just got a bit too stretched. Couple other pieces of macro data I want to show you guys, and then we'll talk about Bitcoin. And in particular, we'll talk about MicroStrategy because that saga is also going to be very interesting to see how it plays out. So we got new personal savings data today, personal savings rate for U.S. consumers. This is from the U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis. It's at 4.6%. This is the highest savings rate since last June. Now, why does that matter? Well, if people are saving and they're not spending, that is good for inflation. Right? Because less money is going and being spent into the economy. And this number was particularly lower towards the beginning of 2024. That's when a lot of people had less disposable income. But now that number has gone up, probably because people are also afraid of spending. If you're afraid of, for example, losing your job, you're afraid of the economy. We saw consumer confidence a couple of days ago come in like very bad, 93 versus 108 expected. And so when consumers are feeling less likely to just feel safe from an economic financial perspective, yeah, they're not going to go out to that extra dinner and spend. They'd rather save that money and make food at home. And that leads to less spending in the economy. Now, that's good for inflation. That's bad for goods and services. That's bad for the local pizzeria that doesn't get your business because you're saving your money instead. So I think there's a sort of nuanced perspective on this. Is it good overall because people are saving more money? Yes. Is it good for inflation? Yes. Is it bad for goods and services being purchased in the economy? Yes. But that might be outweighed by the fact that people are not spending as much, and that could get inflation to come down, given the Fed's main prerogative right here is to get inflation to come down. So that's one of the first charts I wanted to show. The second chart right here, this came out this morning as well. There has been a record weekly inflow, particularly from Bank of America clients. This comes from Bank of America Global Research, into gold, and a record weekly outflow from, you guessed it, crypto. So crypto for Bank of America clients they saw in the week of February 25th, which is this week, was the highest outflow week they've seen in really the past, basically, you could say 18 months. So it's been a pretty aggressive year or aggressive week to see the downside. And it makes sense because Bitcoin's at, 18,000, right? So, or not 81,000. So the fact that Bitcoin has declined as dramatically as it has as well is in line with these record weekly outflows. Also, ETFs have been horrible for Bitcoin. We've seen like billions of dollars leave over the past 2 weeks. And then into gold, a lot of people just think, all right, maybe gold's safer than not. And as a result, you have record weekly inflows into gold kind of coming away from crypto. As a result of all of this, you had Mr. Michael Saylor tweet last night at 11:11 on the dot. Sell a kidney if you must, but keep the Bitcoin. My response was, well, that's a certain type of advice. Dude, I'm kind of scared for what the heck is going to happen with MicroStrategy. I don't think Bitcoin's going to zero or anything like that, but unfortunately, he did spend $2 billion last Monday buying Bitcoin at $97,000. He raised $2 billion in a week. He spent it in a week. And, a lot of the MicroStrategy shareholders are a bit upset because they're like, dude, like, we love that you buy Bitcoin, but you're kind of buying it at the top and you're being a little reckless with how much you're buying. You're not giving yourself any chance to wait to bid at these bottom prices because now who the hell is going to buy $2 billion worth of Bitcoin at 84,000, right? Or 81,000? Like, if it's not Saylor, who is it? And so as a result, I started digging up a little bit and trying to figure out what happens if like Bitcoin goes to zero. Like does MicroStrategy have to pay it back? How does this play out? And here's a video I found about Saylor explaining what ends up happening here.
Call the debt
It's very misunderstood. People think it's debt. It's convertible debt. It's unsecured, no recourse.
No recourse.
What that means, Ron, is that Bitcoin could go from $100,000 to $1,000. The debt's not getting called. There is no recourse. Bitcoin can go to $1. You see, Bitcoin can literally go to 1 penny. The debt there's no call feature. And so it's like basically someone loans you billions of dollars and you agree that in 5 years you will either pay them back in cash or in stock. But you know what happened is if Bitcoin crashed by 75%, the stock would trade down. We would just pay off the debt with stock. So the risk isn't in the debt so much as it's in the equity. But the point, and people are like, oh, well, that makes the equity more risky. Well, yeah, that's the point.
Dude, the end of that video always gets me. It's like, well, that makes the equity more risky. And he's like, yeah, that's the point. My equity is very risky. So play if you want, but it's going to be gambler's paradise in the casino if you play with MicroStrategy equity. Now, look, what he's actually saying, we had some guy who works in derivatives right here, and I agree with him what he said in response to this. He said, hey, convertible bonds are debt securities that have to be paid off in cash if the stock price is below the conversion price, aka if you think of it as a call, the strike price is at 430. If MicroStrategy is at $50, the stock is below the strike, the conversion, which would be 430 in this place. That's where the debt holders would get their debt converted. That's why it's convertible debt into equity. And if it's below that strike price, your investors will still want good old-fashioned fiat currency if it's worth more than your stock. I think he's right about that. So whatever Saylor just said about not having to pay back the debt because we'll just issue more stock, logically in my head, I'm like, all right, if Bitcoin keeps, let's just say it goes to like, I don't know, $10,000, right? Something ridiculous. MicroStrategy stock at 250 right now would be worth single digits. So how much stock can you possibly issue? How many people would actually be willing to be diluted and buy those shares to be able to then make your bondholders break even on the cash by issuing equity? But like there won't be a market for the equity because the equity will be destroyed. So I don't know. I don't know what the hell's going to happen to MicroStrategy. I don't think Bitcoin's going to zero or anything like that. I also don't think they're going to get margin called. I think they're going to have enough safety to be able to withstand a margin call. And quite frankly, they're probably just going to raise more convertible debt to be able to get more money to buy more Bitcoin. And maybe that helps in the short term. But it is going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Like if it really does, I mean, I don't think anyone thought Bitcoin at February 28th would be 82,000. I'm sure some people did, but like it was making such a nice base at 93 to 97. People thought it would kind of chill out in that area. And then boom, within a couple of days, NVIDIA falls, the NASDAQ falls, growth stocks fall, sentiment changes, inflation comes in higher, and Bitcoin, one of the most volatile assets in the world, takes a nice 20% haircut. If that happens again a couple times and you're down 40%, I mean, yeah, I don't even want to know what happens to MicroStrategy. MSTR currently right now is at $239.49, down 0.24%. It was down 8% yesterday as well. See, what's going to happen around MicroStrategy as well is it's either going to be a function of a euphoric bull market by getting to that $500 level it was at. And it's going to be one of those things we look back on in 5 years of like, oh, remember when MicroStrategy was at 500? Or it is going to be sort of a structural, volatile time inside of the overall trajectory of this asset class. And as the asset class moves up, then MSTR will move up with it as well. And it'll just going to be a blip over the long-term trajectory of the chart. And I guess in 4 or 5 years, we'll find out. But all of it at this point depends on Bitcoin and Bitcoin's ability to continue to surge higher. Now, Tom Lee, yes, did predict that we would go down to 60,000 before we would go up to 150, or in his case, he said 250. So if you believe in the Tom Lee thesis on Bitcoin, then yeah, we could probably see a lot more volatility on Bitcoin down to 60K before we see it pop up higher. But the question is going to be, are there enough bidders when Bitcoin actually does get to 60K to buy? Here's that clip real quick of Tom Lee talking about Bitcoin at 60K. And then we'll get into NVIDIA.
Because you're Mr. Prediction and you're Mr. Accurate. It's a year from now. We're celebrating Thanksgiving dinner, and both of us hopefully will have a lot to be thankful for, knock on wood. Where is Bitcoin 1 year from now?
Bitcoin 1 year from now, I think is something around 250,000.
250. Okay. So it's early then. If you could buy a stock at 10 and in a year it could trade to 25, that's a pretty good investment, right?
Yeah, very good. And but knowing that it is hyper volatile,
right. People don't like the volatility. I understand.
Yeah. Mark Newton, our technician, thinks that the cycle of Bitcoin turns a little bit down early next year. So maybe Bitcoin gets to the 60s, 60s before 250.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could see that. Let me pin.
So yeah, I mean, maybe we do get 60K. At least that's what Tom Lee thinks is possible. But we will find out throughout the rest of 25. For those that are OG in Bitcoin that are part of the chat, like, what is your thesis on it right now? Are you buying more Bitcoin? Are you DCAing like normal? Are you establishing kind of positions in IBIT? That video was recorded December 24th. That was on Christmas Eve when he said that. Are you selling your Bitcoin? How are you kind of navigating what's going on with Bitcoin? I do think if we get a real like Bitcoin bear market, we're going to get amazing prices on Bitcoin. And I think, I'm a bit more educated on Bitcoin. I probably would take advantage of that dip. The question is just going to be, how bad does it get? And I guess over the coming months, we're going to see what that ends up happening. Also, I mean, I think, dude, the beautiful thing about IBIT is that it's creating a juicy options market as well. So if you get a good price on IBIT and you can sell calls against it, and like, it's hard to reduce your cost basis on Bitcoin in and of itself because you have to keep buying more Bitcoin. If you buy IBIT, which is BlackRock's ETF as a proxy to Bitcoin, and sell calls against it, you can every week reduce your cost basis even in some volatile times. So that would be my choice if we really see some bad prices on Bitcoin itself. DCA. Yeah, it seems like a lot of you guys are pretty much saying DCA. Matt Money says I bought a decent chunk yesterday, 85,000. Have my auto buy scheduled for later today. Speaking of Matt Money, let's talk about Rklb, and then we'll get into NVIDIA. So what happened on Rklb earnings? I didn't listen to the call. I know a lot of you guys were on Matt's channel, and you did listen to the call. But like, as a market participant, the headline numbers to me were not scary. They were not like gap down 20%. I've been pretty honest. I was on a Twitter Spaces the other day, and I said I don't know how to value Rklb. So maybe it's down 20% because the valuation was absurd at $20. I really don't know. I'm not sure how to value this stock. The only kind of valuation metric I understand that a lot of the bulls point to is that SpaceX is at 350 billion, Rklb's at like barely 20 billion. So there's your undervaluation from just a growth story perspective. But maybe a decline because the expectations were just too high and they didn't fully live up to it. So 132 million in revenues versus 130 expected. Lost 10 cents of EPS. That was expected. Q1 guide, they wanted 136. They came in at 123. So yeah, it's down by 13 million. Does that warrant losing 20% of its value? I'm not sure. Peter Beck said 2024 was a record-setting year for Rklb with our highest annual revenue ever, posted a 436 million and a record Q4 2024 revenue of 132 million, a 382% increase compared to Q4 2021. We rounded out the new year with significant advancements across the Neutron program ahead of our planned debut launch in the second half of 2025, which was also really bullish because the short said it would be 2027, and instead it came in at 2025 or second half of 2025. So yeah, from that understanding, I feel like this was decent. We'll see how the market thinks of it in the next 15 minutes. I mean, put in the chat if you're buying the dip, if you're selling this thing, if you're getting puts on this. I mean, what are you doing to navigate this? And if this is a price that becomes more attractive to you, it really does suck that Rklb was holding 30 for a good 3 weeks and then it tanked. Same thing with Robinhood and Poundtree. They were holding these elevated levels and then they came back down to reality. Rklb is still up significantly from the lows of 2023 and 2024. And if you're a new investor, yeah, it's annoying. But if you've been in this for a long time, it's probably the volatility that you expected over the long term when it comes to an asset like this. On Beneficial says, clearly they didn't live up to the expectations. They guided for less than expected. Markets got the reaction right. Yeah, I definitely think it should be down. Like the question to me is, and I don't understand the stock so well, so it's up for interpretation, but does it deserve to be down 20% off a 17 or a 13 million revenue miss? Rklb recovering a little bit in the pre-markets, now down 13% instead of 17%. But I guess that's the question. What is the appropriate type of pain that it deserves to have? Like NVIDIA, you could say it deserves to be down off that report because they guided for a little bit lower than, or they missed 40 billion versus 39 billion, which is still a beat, but it's not as big of a beat. But does it deserve to be down 15%? You know? And that's where I feel like the fear and greed index is going to help us at least get a better evaluation of how actually bad is sentiment, because this could just be sentiment taking it down an extra 4 or 5% across the entire board versus the stock deserves to actually be down that extra 4 or 5%. Rklb is one of the 3 companies to have launched the vehicle in 2025. Yeah, I mean, look, I would definitely say there is a moat to this company. It is very hard to deny that there is not a moat. And so the question becomes, what premium is that moat deserving of? And at least as of in the pre-markets, the market's deciding it's definitely not in that $20 range currently right now. SMCI in the pre-markets is down another 6.2%. SMCI now is at $40. Look, pretty disgusting price action on SMCI. This one turned out to be a dud with the 10K and a dud with NVIDIA's report. So the sort of bullish catalysts that were set up for SMCI took place at $66 on February 19th. And then it kind of faded away. It's not that much to blame on SMCI because, again, the whole market tanked yesterday. Like in the last 15 minutes of the day, we got a really good market tank. SMCI, there's no way it would be able to, recover from that in this type of environment. So it is what it is. If you're long SMCI, I'm sure the thesis hasn't changed, especially now that they filed the 10K. They're more of a legit company. But as a trade, there was a time to get in and a time to get out. And I guess now there's not really that much juice left on the bone when it comes to SMCI. Okay, NVIDIA. Let's talk about NVIDIA. So why did NVIDIA have the type of volatility that it had yesterday? 117.53 right now, currently in the pre-market. So the number one reason is, I think, tariffs, but we'll talk about the second reason as well. So yesterday we saw Jensen talk about export controls. The analyst on the call said, hey, what are you guys going to do with your export controls? Are there going to be worse tariffs that happen in regards to stopping some of the pain that we are seeing, or some of the ability for Chinese officials to be able to get their hands on these GPUs? And Jensen and NVIDIA's team, they said, we don't know. They could not give an answer because they would be lying if they had an answer, right? So they said, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if the export controls are effective. And whatever the Trump administration says with tariffs, we're going to have to be able to navigate. That, along with the fact that Trump yesterday said he's doubling down on the tariffs and he's 1000% imposing them, is making the markets feel, okay, this is a time of uncertainty. We don't know how aggressive the tariffs are going to be, particularly export controls along with tariffs in certain parts of the world that NVIDIA is used to selling to. And that could create a lot more pain in terms of NVIDIA's top line results. How do we know that? Well, take a look at this headline that we got this morning. Singapore police arrest 3 in possible U.S. chip sanctions breach. Singapore charged 3 men with fraud for allegedly misrepresenting the end of user computing servers, potentially links to the NVIDIA chip shipments to China. The arrest follows reports that the U.S. is investigating whether Chinese AI firm DeepSeek bypassed U.S. chip sanctions via intermediaries in Singapore. Authorities raided 22 locations, seized records, and are still investigating 22 individuals and companies. Fraud charges carry up to 20 years in prisons or fines. Custom officials are also probing potential violations of trade laws. This is exactly what you don't want to see if you're NVIDIA. Not because people shouldn't stop doing what they're doing in Singapore, but if people stop doing what they're doing in Singapore, then NVIDIA is going to have less chip sales, right? Like the dirty secret here is that NVIDIA is selling chips to Singapore and Singapore is giving them to China. And NVIDIA says they don't know if that's happening. I'm a bit skeptical if they don't actually know if that's happening. But if that is happening, and then they can't sell to Singapore anymore, or their controls to sell to Singapore are significantly limited, yeah, NVIDIA is going to have a little bit less revenue because they're not going to be able to sell as many chips. Now, granted, demand in other areas might outweigh, and it's not as black or white as their revenue goes down, but at least that's how the street is thinking of it. And that's actually why I think we're down another 2.5% in the pre-markets, is because of that Singapore headline. And so I guess we're going to see over the next coming days what happens. As player one says, you don't want to commit a crime in Singapore. I have learned a lot more about Singapore over the past couple months, because my uncle's from Singapore, and I've been talking to my uncle a lot more just about the stock market. Also, a lot of you guys are from Singapore. Also, I started researching Grab, so I started learning about the geopolitical climate there. Yeah, you don't want to commit a crime in Singapore, bro. Like you sell drugs in Singapore, it's not like a misdemeanor. You're done, bro. Like, you're done. It's part of the reason they keep the country so uptight, is because they are so damn strict about violating the law. And it's like, yeah, death penalty, right, Sanjay? It's like if you're caught selling like cocaine or something in Singapore, you get the death penalty, which is wild, bro. Like, it's a hell of a way to tell people not to do drugs. Because in the United States, I mean, you get jail time, and many times it becomes a misdemeanor, and you're able to like be on bail and probation and stuff. But yeah, and that's part of the world you get hit. So look, I don't know if these people that were selling chips are gonna get the death penalty, but they're definitely not gonna be in the best situation when it comes to being in Singapore. So if Singapore cracks down, and Singapore is known to crack down, and if the United States in particular tells them to crack down, they're an ally with the United States. That could be a headwind for NVIDIA. Another problem that came out yesterday for NVIDIA is this. So OpenAI released GPT 4.5. I don't know if anyone in the chat got a chance to use it. I have not had a chance to use it yet, but here's what Sam Altman said. It is a giant, expensive model. We really wanted to launch it to Plus and Pro at the same time, but we've been growing a lot and are out of GPUs. We will add tens of thousands of GPUs next week and roll it out to the Plus tier then. Hundreds of thousands of GPUs coming soon, and I'm pretty sure you guys will use up everyone we can rack up. Now, the problem here is a bunch of people, as soon as they got their hands on 4.5, they did a bunch of benchmarks with it, and they realized that 4.5 is not that much better than 4.0. And that's the issue. Why is that an issue? Well, if they're not making substantial improvements in the model, but they're spending so much money on the GPUs to be able to make the new models for training, but the models aren't getting that much better, then why would they buy more GPUs, right? Like, the whole point of the NVIDIA S-curve is that the more better the models get, eventually leading to AGI, which we're not at yet, but maybe in the next 24 to 36 months, people think it's possible. You would need a lot of computing power. This is what Jensen said on the earnings call, right? You need, with post-training, and what DeepSeek has made everyone realize is you need a lot more post-training for reasoning and deep think, et cetera. That is going to create a lot more compute demand, which means there's going to be a lot of more infrastructure demand, which means data centers, NVIDIA, all of this should catch a bid. ASML, Qualcomm, Broadcom, TSMC, all of them should ride that wave. Well, if the models aren't getting that much better, then why do we need that many more chips? Now, that could be a reason NVIDIA took a nasty beating yesterday at around 3:45 when this news came out. However, the alternative response to this is that the reason Sam Altman is out of GPUs is because NVIDIA is not giving them the GPUs. They're giving XAI the GPUs. So Farzad said right here, he's out of GPUs because Jensen knows XAI will be the eventual winner. Why prioritize a clear loser? And then Chad says, I know where they are all going. Now, Chad works at Palantir, and what was really cool last night for Palantir is that they had their DevCon, and at DevCon, they had the XAI team join them to present the partnership between XAI, as you can see right here on the screen, and Palantir. And what was really cool about this partnership that they had yesterday, if you can see in the picture right here, the accuracy rates that they had on their models within AIP. So the exact number right here is 99.98% cell accuracy and 97.5% document accuracy. And this is not a benchmark. This is on real customer data, is what Chad said. This was only for Grok 2 as well. So buckle up, meaning they got that level of accuracy on Grok 3. Which are on Grok 2, which means Grok 3 might be in another game changer. So I think the relationship between XAI and Palantir is going very well. The XAI engineers are seeing a lot of results with AIP on real customer data, not dummy data. And Grok 3, from my personal usage over the past 2 weeks, has been one of the best models I've used in my entire life. which then begs the question, okay, so is NVIDIA selling off because the market thinks that GPU demand is going to stop because the models aren't getting that much better? Therefore, GPT 5.5 won't be that much better than 4.5, so they don't need that many models? Or is the market getting it wrong because XAI is just getting all the models or getting all the GPUs because Jensen knows that XAI has a better team and they have a better cluster and they're working at a better way. So he's prioritizing XAI over OpenAI, which would be quite ironic if that's how the story plays out, that Sam Altman turned it into a profit from a nonprofit and then like XAI ended up coming from behind and winning. And as a result, the market should not be selling off NVIDIA because XAI is going to be buying millions of more NVIDIA GPUs. They even said they were going to sell, or they were going to buy millions of NVIDIA GPUs in the presentation for Grok 3 2 weeks ago. They said, hey, yeah, this is a 200,000 cluster GPU. We are going to have a 2 million cluster GPU in the next couple of years. And so as a result, the demand is there. The market's perception of that demand is simply flawed. Those are kind of the bull and bear cases on what's going on with NVIDIA. But regardless, the market is taking it down another 2% right here, 117.8 currently in the pre-markets. Palantir is 1 cent away from going below 80. We just hit below 80 for a second. We'll see if we get there again. We got 2 minutes until the market opens. It does look like it wants to go below 80. It would not surprise me if that happens. And in 2 minutes, I guess we're going to see how that ends up playing out. Callum says, so a few years into AI LLMs and we are done. Well, see, that's what some people are saying. And my interpretation of that is no. I mean, we talked about a bunch of different AI use cases yesterday around how these LLMs are expanding. Oh, my podcast with Brett is going to be launching today, guys. It's going to be posting at 11 a.m. I actually have to leave a little early today, right at 11. But I will be posting that podcast at 11 a.m. on the new channel. So you guys will be able to check it out as soon as I post it. Here is the podcast link or the podcast channel in the description in the chat. Please make sure to subscribe. I promise these will be, in my opinion, good podcasts, and they will only be podcasts with big guests. They will not be random people. They are going to be names in the industry and tech, business, finance that matters. So if you want to subscribe to that channel, there it is right there. 11 a.m. It'll be launching on YouTube. 12 p.m. It'll be launching on Twitter. So if you want to watch it on Twitter, it'll be out at 12. At 11, it'll be out on this channel. Did I just put the regular channel link? Oh, sorry. I put my regular channel link. Hold on. I have to put the actual one. I still don't have a name for it yet either. It's just a mid-cook Ranger podcast right now. So yeah, that'll be out. But the reason I brought this up is because, Figure said, hey, we're going to need a lot of GPUs. We're going to need a lot of GPUs for these robots. So I think there's going to be many, many, many S-curves around GPUs. And it's not just going to be stuck at a large language model. There are more use cases that we can't even conceptualize. But the market doesn't want to hear about that right now. The market does not want to hear about that right now. All right, here we go. 9:30 a.m. Friday, February 28th. We are ending out the month of February for 2025. Thank you, everybody, for being here. The stock market is now open. All right, wake your ass up. Let's see how much bleeding we have to do today. We are at 117 on NVIDIA, 117.85, down about 2% on the day. 116.68 is where it bottomed, at least for now in the opening seconds, but we're at 118 currently on NVIDIA. Rklb down 16.5%. That is a nasty one, but there it is. We'll see if that gets even worse. 16% is definitely a decent chunk. If it falls below 16, then it's going to be around 17%. But right now, we are down 16% on Rklb at 16.85. Robinhood down about 2%, 47.86. MicroStrategy is down about 1%, 2.38. NVIDIA 117.55. SMCI below 40. Goodness gracious, down 8.5% on the day. Bitcoin 81,000. Grab is down 2%. Amazon's down 0.5%. Salesforce down 0.5%. Palantir 79.20. Palantir continues to sell off, now down 6.64%. We are below where we were going into Q3 earnings on Palantir, 79.66 on the day. We'll see if it can have any level of support at these levels, or if it continues to consolidate a bit below this $80 range. 79.48 right now on Palantir. Tesla, 275. That's down another 2.5%. Archer was down 20% yesterday after hours, currently down 10%. They didn't really have any earnings because they don't have any revenue or EPS numbers, but Archer is down currently right now. Where is Nubank? Nubank is 1082. Nubank's down 4%. Even the international plays continuing to get hit. Riot is down 0.5%. Coinbase is down 2.3%. BlackBerry is down 3.2%. Walmart and Home Depot are green. This does not make sense, dude. If this is going to be a consumer fueled sell-off, for those consumer names to be green is very interesting. Like, obviously, if consumers are saving more money, not spending as much money, Home Depot and Walmart are not going to have that many sales. So it's weird to see them green, but they are green. Crown Castle's green, Verizon's green, AT&T is green, and T-Mobile is green. So seeing a little bit of a move to safety. Pharmaceuticals are green, financials are green with JP Morgan. Growth stocks obviously are red on the day. Spotify is red, Shopify is red. We got GitLab that's down, that's red. Rklb getting a little bit of a green candle right there at 1713, down about 13.2%. NVIDIA 116. NVIDIA now going below that 118 level and getting hit. Fubo is at 19% down. Did Fubo have earnings? I think they had earnings today. I'm not sure if they had earnings. Their earnings weren't the best. Fubo down 18.3%. Google down below 169 now at 167. Palantir 78.86 down 7% on the day. Really just taking it on the chin is an understatement right here. 78.92 down 6.7%. Tesla as well, 274. Tesla now is exactly where it was the day before Trump got elected. At I think 265 is where is that. So call it within 2% of that range. 265 to 275 was November 5th to November 6th ranges on Tesla. Currently, we're at 275, down from the 487 level that it was at in December of 2024. Monster Energy is up 7%. Interesting. So Monster catching a bid. I don't think we actually caught their earnings yesterday. Monster's up 7%. Duolingo's down 16%. Rklb down 12%. Again, recovering a little bit. Dell is down 7%. SoundHound's down 2%. They were actually up 14% yesterday on earnings. Open Door down 8%. Rocket Mortgage is up 7.3%. Transmedics, they had a decent earnings. They were up 15%. Now they're up 2%. Archer's down 8%. And then Redfin is down 12%. HP is down 8%. And Dell is down 7%. Those were the earnings that we had yesterday. Looking like Monster is the one that's benefiting the most from those earnings. HIMS is green. Interesting. HIMS is green. 41.75. HIMS catching a bid here right now. NVIDIA rebounding from 116 to 118. Grab at 474. Palantir 78.79. Trying to get back to that $79 range. Again, Tesla 275. Oracle is down another 2% as well. Where are the semiconductor stocks? They are all red by about 2%. So pretty much all of them getting hit as well. TSM, Qualcomm, Broadcom, all those guys down about 2% right here. SMCI down 7%. That one's getting hit the worst. Again, as a trade, there was just the right time to be in, right time to be out, but that one's getting hit. Marvell's down 1.5%. Then ARM is down 2% as well. Skype is shutting down. Yeah, that was a headline. Skype is shutting down. Microsoft is shutting down Skype. I don't know if anyone uses Skype anymore. But Skype is down. Microsoft right here, 387 down 1.4%. Microsoft is now negative year over year. It's one of the only Mac 7s that's actually down year over year. Let's check on the other Mac 7s. Apple is red, 235. Meta, 647, below 650. Google, 169. Amazon, 207. NVIDIA, 118. And Tesla, 276. All of them down about 2 to 3% here on the day. Oh, wow. We have an old Skype dev here in the chat. I love it. Got an old Skype dev. Awesome. Amit, are you buying the NVIDIA dip? So I bought the NVIDIA dip yesterday. I bought about 50 shares yesterday from 124 to 121 was my buy range. So I'm going to wait. We're going to see. Let's see how much lower it gets, how much more pain we have. But I took a nibble at the dip yesterday. At this point, honestly, I don't mind acquiring more NVIDIA because the covered call premiums are still amazing. So selling covered calls on them every week and reducing my cost basis that way is fine. The question to me becomes, all right, are they really taking NVIDIA below 100? Is this a story that has collapsed so psychologically that it's getting ready to go into that 95 August 5th range? Or is this DeepSeek 2.0 to an extent, not as dramatic as that time, but really good earnings, markets being emotional, and eventually it's going to rebound? And I think we need a couple days to kind of see how that plays out. And maybe today we'll get some data as well. But NVIDIA right here at 119, down about 0.84% here right now. Hood's almost green, which is crazy. Robinhood 48. See, again, if we're heading into a recession, Robinhood cannot be green. Like it doesn't make any sense. Robinhood, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to realize people will not be trading as much on Robinhood or putting as much money into Robinhood. They'll be keeping it in their bank account if we get into a recession or if we get into a really bad bear market. So the fact that the market's about to take Robinhood green today, there you go, it goes green, is kind of the market calling BS, in my opinion, on all the volatility we're seeing. And they're trying to front run the inevitable rebound that happens. Or they think Robinhood is just such an amazing company that it'll weather the storm. And the market's wrong about that. Robinhood will not weather the storm if the market tanks. Like, as much as I love the company, if we have to be objective, they don't have the diversified streams of revenue. They don't have SaaS revenue outside of the gold subscription, which is like 50 million a quarter, that is going to be able to keep them growing at upwards of 25%. So it is kind of a signal I'm getting from the market that they're giving Robinhood this green. It could also just be random. It could also be retail just buying it up to buy it up. But that is weird that Hood goes green on a day where everything else is going red. Rklb right here at 18. All right, so Rklb now down 8%. It was down 17%. So a nice 9% reversal from the very lows. That's not too bad to see. Let's see if it can hold on those levels. Where is the 10-year? The 10-year today is at, wow, 4.241. That 10-year continues to come down. This is what Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, has wanted for the past couple of months now. Dixie's also flat at 107.29, the US dollar. That 10-year coming down is not too bad. Valero says we had a Hood event in London last night. Awesome event. People are buying Hood. If you can tweet me some pictures about the event, I would love to see. I know a couple of you guys went to that event. If you can send me the pictures or tweet it at me. I would love to see what the event was like. But that's cool. They're marketing in the UK, so that's awesome. That's great. Now, granted, I don't know if that's a reason it should be up and it should be green right now, but retail sentiment hopefully is not dead. And I think that's what the market is betting on as well, with Robinhood going green. Archer was negative 15%. Now it's negative 3%. Yeah, that's actually not a horrible recovery. So we're getting some V-shapes. NVIDIA as well, 116 to 119. Again, bought the dip yesterday. If we see some really strong weakness today, I'll probably buy a little bit more right here. But 118 is what we have on NVIDIA. I think we're the reason I think we're going to need a couple more days to see what's the sentiment around NVIDIA as well. Because right now there's tariffs and there's the OpenAI stuff that's creating this volatility. Maybe that's a short-term rebound. Maybe that's a short-term spike in downward momentum. But for it to gap up back to 130 even, we would need to see a narrative shift. And as of now, that narrative is pretty bad. So I think there could definitely be more pain for NVIDIA if the narrative continues to get bad. And that's when the dip gets a bit juicier. But a rebound would not be the worst thing in the world at 120. The RSI on a lot of these names, by the way, I mean, NVIDIA's RSI is just above 30. If we go at Hood's RSI, it's around 48 on the, let me do the daily. Yeah, on the daily, just around that level. On the monthly, it's around 50. If you go to Rklb's RSI on the daily, the relative strength index, that one is also just above 30. I mean, you're definitely seeing these names get into that oversold territory. Usually below 30 tends to be, or around 30 tends to be a bit more oversold. Palantir back above 80 as well. And so that could also be another indicator for why some of these names are buys versus sells. SoFi right here at 14. Also from a fundamental perspective, again, like SoFi at 11 is stupid. Rklb at $10 to me becomes stupid. Like if we really see, if you know, NVIDIA at 110 to me, the cheapest I bought it was at 113 a couple weeks ago. If it really gets back to those levels, to me, that just feels stupid. And so I wonder if the level of just like sheer absurdity that some of these prices can get to would allow market participants to be like, holy crap, I've been waiting for this opportunity and I'm jumping in with all the cash on the sidelines. But I don't know if prices have to get that absurd to get there. TLT is up as the 10-year comes down, 91.74. For those that have been parking cash in TLT, that has been a decent hedge so far. It was a bad hedge in January. It's been a good hedge in February. And so that's been not the worst thing. Stray says, is Zelensky signing the Trump order today? Shouldn't that boost markets? So there is a rare minerals deal that has been agreed to with Ukraine. And I do believe today they're going to be signing that. The broader end of the war and the negotiations around that, Trump said yesterday in a press conference that they're getting very close to doing that. If they do end up securing the end to this, hopefully in the next, call it couple weeks, the one good thing about that as well for the broader markets is oil prices should start to normalize even more. So oil right here is below 70 at 69.43. If we stop having a war with Russia and Ukraine, oil should go down even further as we have more output. So that could be a sort of macro tailwind for the broader market. It could be great for consumers as well. But no one actually knows if there is going to be any negotiation to bring peace over the coming weeks. But maybe in March that could happen. So we're definitely going to have to see if that ends up playing out. Robinhood right here, 48.17, Rklb 17.97, Archer 7.65, Microsoft 3.89. HIMS goes green, up 3.2%. But that is currently up right now. Nubank as well at 11. That's down 2.3% here on the day. Google going a little green as well at 169. Apple at 236. Apple was safety on Monday. It's starting to not be as safe again, if you look at Apple's PE, it's at 37. NVIDIA's PE is now below 28. Obviously, NVIDIA is growing a bit more than Apple. Again, Costco PE versus NVIDIA's PE. And Steve talked about it yesterday, right? People are buying Costco because they think it's a recession-proof stock. So if it's a recession-proof stock, it's more safer than buying NVIDIA. You could make that argument, but you could also make that argument that in a recession, there is still going to be a decline in earnings, which is going to create margin compression. And given the margin, or given the multiple is trading at such a high level, margin reduction would lead to multiple reduction. And, Costco is probably not going to be trading at a 57 times PE. So I don't know. It is a wonky market where people are paying that versus paying 28 times for NVIDIA, but I guess it goes down to the fear as well when it comes to NVIDIA. Harley, thank you for the $4.99 super chat. He says, don't the exchanges make money if you buy or sell? Could that be the reason why Hood is up? So this is a reason that people get misconstrued about Robinhood or brokerages in general. They think that the volatility on the exchanges, aka Robinhood is a toll booth, and if you buy and sell, that it doesn't matter whatever action you do, Robinhood's going to make money, is a reason for why Robinhood or Schwab or Fidelity, etc., maintain their momentum. That is technically true. The problem is after people sell, they're not buying, right? So if you have a violent sell-off and Robinhood makes a ton of money by collecting all this payment for order flow and fees when people are selling their crypto and selling their options and their equities, etc., unless you get them to buy again, if they're staying in cash, that's a one-time action that, looks good for like maybe the quarter, but the next quarter goes to shit because if we're truly in a bear market, then people are not buying back in. Now, if people start buying back in and you have just healthy volatility, then yes, that is a good thing for the stock, for the company, and they make money off the toll booth. But if we enter into a legit bear cycle, that's not going to be good for Hood, and they're going to get discounted pretty quickly. So I think that's the market is betting on the fact that people will buy back in and that this is volatility that's good. But eventually we're going to find out if that plays out. Zim says they stay in cash and they are not selling and leaving Robinhood. You don't have to believe me. Go look at the August data of what happened on Hood. You really don't have to believe me. August and September tend to be the worst months in Robinhood's earnings history if you've studied the company. Even on August 5th, when everything went to shit and people sold everything and then people bought everything, Robinhood only had $2 billion of deposits in the month of August. Why? Because people were so scared by that August 5th event, they took a lot of their money out of Robinhood and they went into cash and they tried to be safer. And if they left their cash on Robinhood, Robinhood makes way more money on trading than they make on the actual cash. So it's not like they balance it out by just having cash on the platform and collecting a spread of net interest income. So historically, you need a bull market for Robinhood to work. You really do. And if we get into a bear market, I think we're going to get one of the best dips ever on Robinhood, but I don't think we're going to get into the bear market. It's just something people have to take into account. If we do, then I think Hood gets a little lower. Where is NVIDIA? Okay, NVIDIA is at 119. NVIDIA gapping up just a little bit currently right now. Google's going green as well. Solana's up 6%. Dude, Solana has been a mess. A lot of these crypto names have just been decimated. Where is the Trump meme coin? Let's take a look at that. That one is down another 7%. It's $12. It was $70 at one point. Fart coin is now down another 10%. It is still at 29 cents, still a $300 million market cap. So we're getting some of that crypto froth out of the market. And then MicroStrategy right here at 241, turning slightly green, up about 0.5% currently right now. Amit, do you think we're entering a bear market? I do not. I really think this was normal volatility for the month of February. I know people get mad when I say it's normal, or I say it's like, I said yesterday, I was like, well, this volatility is a little annoying. And someone's like, a little? You think it's a little annoying? And I'm like, yeah, it's a little annoying because like it's upsetting, but it's not like, oh my God, like the world is collapsing. It's like, no, you're in the stock market. Stocks will go up, they will go down. Like it is what it is. Like it is what it is. Like it's just how the market operates. And so if you can't stomach some of this volatility, it begs the question, do you want to be investing in individual stocks? Is it annoying? Yeah, but it is what it is. And so from that perspective, I also think, all right, what are the opportunities? What gets exciting? And then from all the data I'm looking at, do I think everything is going to shit? And although some things are going to shit, not everything is going to shit. In particular, the one thing that's really not going to shit is earnings growth. And because that's not going to shit, it's really hard for me to believe that we're in a bear market versus we are in a structurally volatile time in a market that has been very good for the past 36 months and is having a little bit of weakness. It is what it is. But Gusto says the problem is we did not lock in profits. I mean, yeah, well, that's subjective, right? Like if you're really mad at yourself for not selling Palantir at 125, I think it's a toxic mentality, and it's one of the things I would advise to not be that upset about, because then you're trying to time the market as well as you can. And I'm not saying it's necessarily bad to time the market in certain areas, but you got to also be real with yourself, right? If you were not going to sell at that, you can't be mad in hindsight. If you were not going to buy at a certain price when the stock was down, you can't be mad in hindsight when the stock runs up and you didn't buy. So to me, it's just a question of like, do you need the money to live? No? Okay. Are you in good companies? Yes? Okay. Then it's the question of waiting it out. The reason we talk about selling options so much on the channel is because I think there's still a way to generate income off the volatility, even if your core holdings take a beating. So if you had covered calls on Palantir, they've made you money, even if the equity has gone down. If you've sold puts on Palantir when it was at, I don't know, let's call it, you sold puts at 75 when it was at 95. Maybe you didn't make a ton of premium, but you made some premium because it didn't drop all the way to 75. You've still made money on that. If you bought puts on Palantir, you've made money. So I think there's ways to make money in the volatility without selling out of your core positions. And it takes an understanding of derivatives and options and a deeper understanding of how to play the volatility. But it at least helps you protect yourself from the mentality that I needed to sell at the top and buy at the bottom, because it's just very hard to do that. Amit, does it make sense to trade out of a small grab position to put into something else for now? Yes, 100%. If you have positions in your portfolio that are very, like in my opinion, the way I think about position sizing is if you have junk in the portfolio, meaning it's something you don't care about, maybe you like grab, but you don't really care that much about grab. You have a couple hundred shares and maybe you're down $100 on it or whatever, and you would rather put into higher conviction names. Yeah. Like this is when you, like if you are really convicted on Rklb, more convicted on Rklb than even Palantir, and you have, I don't know, a $20 Palantir average, and Palantir's at 80, and you have 5,000 shares, and you're thinking, hey, I really believe Rklb is going to do well, and you want to sell off 20% of your Palantir, so 1,000 shares, and capture those gains, and then transition into Rklb. I don't think that's a horrible thing to do, especially because Rklb's giving you a great discount. And the question is, by the way, Rklb only down 5%, 17% to 5%, nice 12% recovery. I don't think that's a bad thing to do, because essentially you're just deepening your conviction in names that you care about. And you sleep better at night knowing you took some profits and you put it into something that you think is theoretically more undervalued than something like a Palantir, which is Rklb. And it is what it is. But I think if there's junk in the portfolio, these are the moments where you solidify into stuff you care about, because you're getting a lot better prices on the names you care about across the board. Sometimes the dip is the best mental test of conviction to reposition. 1,000%. I mean, sometimes you're owning a name and then you realize you really don't want to own that name because you never cared about it in the first place. And that's when you get out of it. NASDAQ goes green. All right, so we're getting a little bit of green right here. 500 on the NASDAQ. Robin is trying to get back to 49. Grab goes green as well. SMCI down 5% after being down almost 8%. Google going green. Bitcoin 82.4. Getting a little bit of green across some of these plays. AMD was below 100 yesterday. Is it above 100 right now? AMD just below 100, 99.99. So this one continues to feel some pain. This one also is struggling with the narrative. AMD's narrative is just that they're second to NVIDIA. They're not growing as much. And if NVIDIA is struggling with a narrative, AMD is going to be struggling with that as well. I'll buy the 10:30 sell-off. Yeah, we still have 40 minutes until the 10:30 sell-off. All right, let's do year-to-dates. What do we got on the year-to-dates? My year-to-date is at 5%. 5%. That is my year-to-date. Let's put in the chat, what are you guys looking at when it comes to year-to-date? Philip says, it's like that cheesy quote, if you can't handle me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best. Exactly, dude. I mean, you just don't deserve to make money in the markets if you're not ready to deal with the volatility, because part of getting to those amazing gains is going through the cliche of the horrible pains. Like no pain, no gain. It's very simple analysis to understand what it means to exist in the stock market. And that's what we're going through in the bottom half of February. All right. I'm looking at pretty much 0 to 10% across the board. We got 6.8%. We got some people in the negative. We definitely got some negatives here. 2%, negative 3%, negative 5%, Manifest Destiny 9.74%. Chris down 8, or Chris is up 8%. Matt 35%. Some of you guys that are hedged pretty well are probably not doing too bad, right? If you had puts on your positions or had a lot of calls that you sold on your positions. Pharrell NYC 3.5%, Philip 5%. Yeah, pretty much across the board. I'm seeing a ton of negatives. Those negatives are about -5% at the most. Some of you guys are outliers at -20%, but the outliers or the median of what I'm seeing is, I would say, -5 to 10% is the range that we're seeing here. Because some people slightly down year to date, other people slightly up year to date is pretty much what we're getting right here. And, you know, it makes sense too. I mean, if you're heavily allocated, like, here's the other thing. And this is what Jason was saying on Tuesday, right? Like, Verizon is green right now. So everyone's like, well, why am I not in Verizon? Why am I in freaking Rklb? That's tanking 20%. But most of the time, Rklb's not tanking 20%. Rklb's doing a lot better than being down 20%. And when that happens, Verizon is usually flat or doing nothing. So it's the conundrum of, like, you know, people feel if they're invested in growth stocks, oh my God, like, I should be in these value plays because these are at least more safer during the hard times. It's like, yeah, but during the good times, which are far more than the hard times, your growth stocks are growing, which is why the market's paying a premium for it. And even with the hard times, you're probably still up overall year over year or over the past couple of years. Because if you bought Rklb at 5 and it's at 18, yeah, it's not at 30, but it's not at 5. Whereas if you bought Verizon at 37 and it's at 42, I mean, your portfolio just didn't have that much capital appreciation, even with the 6% dividend that you got. So I think that's a good balance to have a lot of that safe stuff as well. But it's not like it is a replacement for growth, because at the end of the day, the market is rewarding growth, especially in the market that we've been in over the past couple of years. Yeah, the dividend on Verizon is juicy. It's just, you know, how many shares do you even have for that dividend to make a difference at the end of the day? Also, that dividend is taxed too. So it's like, they find any way to get you. But for really, like, big gains from a stock going from 10 to 20 type of stuff, you got to be in stocks that actually have the ability to grow. Archer went green. Wow. Yeah. I mean, definitely the market is saying, at least with a name like Archer going up, that we were a bit oversold. We'll see at 10:30 kind of how this plays out. But we are definitely getting some green reversals here right now. Christina says, I parked some of my money with the S&P and some dividend paying stocks that I really believe in, and that's good enough of a hedge for me. Okay, here's another question for everybody. I think we asked this like a couple months ago, so we'll ask it again. What percentage of your portfolio is the S&P 500? I'll tell you my answer right now. It's a big old zero, dude. But I did open my 401k, my solo 401k, and I am planning to contribute $40,000 into the S&P 500, just the S&P on my solo 401k. That'll happen probably towards the end of the year. So I will be allocated to the S&P by the end of the year. But as of now, that's a big fat zero, bro. That's Yo, we have so many zeros in the chat. Oh my God, we're all gonna go broke. We're all gonna go broke. If we get a recession, we're all going broke, bro. Holy crap. We're all going broke. I'm just kidding. Look, I mean, I don't think it's horrible to be 0% to the S&P, quite frankly. Like, I understand, you know, conventionally you're supposed to have the money in the index, yada, yada. I get it. And I will, right? I personally will be doing that with my retirement account, but I don't hate the fact that people don't have that much S&P exposure. Granted, it is the one safe thing. The right thing to do is have some part of it in the S&P that helps you sleep well at night, because even if we have a drawdown in the market, individual stocks will fall 50%. The S&P falls maybe 20%, right? So that's still better than nothing. All right, but outside of the ones who said zero, a decent amount of you guys said about 10%. You got some people saying 50. That's the outliers. A couple people said 30. The far majority of you, I would say, are from 0 to 10%. Got some fucking risk takers in the chat, bro. It makes, like, I get it though, right? Because the S&P is so boring, and it's just like, this is why, look, my actual opinion on the S&P is you have to do it on an account you don't look at. Like, it literally it cannot be on my Robinhood account, because then I'm going to sell it. Like, if I see something that's worth $500, I'm going to take that problem and put it into something else. If it's something I don't look at, like my solo 401k, which again, I set up 2 weeks ago, it's all ready to go. I just have to contribute to it now. I don't open that, right? So I think every month I'm just gonna have an auto DCA of $1,000 and let that go into the S&P. But it's tough when you're an active, like, portfolio manager of your own portfolio. Like, when you're actually managing it, like, you look at the S&P, you're just like, why is this thing here? What is this thing doing right now? Manuel says, Amit, I'm 22 years old, so I'm all in stock since I started investing. I do want to start putting some money every month on the S&P at the end of the year. Yeah. And, Steve would be very happy if he heard that comment, a 22-year-old who wants to put some money in the S&P. It's the right thing to do. It's the safe thing to do. It's a DCA. It doesn't have to be all of your capital. It can be even 1 or 2%. But because you're so young at 22, you just have so many years of compounding. And the one beautiful thing about markets is that we know they compound over time. And that's really the reason to even have any money in the index in and of itself. Okay, so let's get an update from the suits, see what they are saying, and we'll get some headlines. A couple headlines real quick. President Trump is planning to sign an executive order that would, for the first time, make English the official language of the United States. That headline just dropped. So I guess English is going to be our official language now. I think this is like Trump's 100th executive order, maybe more than that. He's been signing a lot of them. And then I said this already, but Microsoft just announced that after 21 years, it is officially shutting down Skype in May. So no more Skype. But now the United States has English as our number one language. All right, let's get an update from this, and then we'll keep going from there.
Money or a lot of profitability from some of those big orders.
The CFO on that very point, where we talked about the profitability, because that can. Yesterday, what they showed in the quarter was actually very good profitability, and that's what Yvonne McGill pointed to when we talked about this on the overall revenue miss. She said, and yeah, supply timing definitely was a part of this. Customers, she said, are increasingly focused on next generation tech, and that's Blackwell, right? Technology. Our pipeline is still multiples of what we're seeing. I thought it was a pretty bullish comment by her on the AI server business. The CSG, which is basically the computers, was lower than expected. And then on the margins, she said, look at the EPS for the quarter. Strong performance, better than we expected on profitability. We improved in ISG, which is the server business and networking and storage, every quarter, all while growing our server portfolio. Also mentioned to me on this point, David, that they've been able to find their own efficiencies within the business in order to keep margins higher. I asked her about DeepSeek, because that caused that big freak out about how much spending is needed and whether you need to spend so much on AI servers. She said, actually, that was a moment where we saw it ignite interest, and it was almost an excitement moment, a catalyst for customers of we need to be here and we need to get here quick because they're doing it, in China. Pretty competitive environment, though, as far as MicroStrategy, Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, David, they're all in the AI server business, but according to Yvonne McGill, the CFO, not the lowest price servers on the market with Dell, but best solutions. And so customers are willing to pay up for the more, what she calls, valuable solutions on the AI front. So kind of a mixed numbers and maybe mixed take from the street, although very bullish in terms of the commentary from the executives.
Yeah. And that's been the case, I think, across the board to a certain extent. And yet the market seems to be at least embracing perhaps some fear of a slowdown overall when it comes to the big AI-related trade that we've been talking about now for so long. And obviously, we referenced some of the big names earlier. But, it's funny. And then you get, and I referenced this, Sam Altman from OpenAI putting out a post saying GPT 4.5 is ready. That's their latest. First model, he says, feels like talking to a thoughtful person. He goes on to say he's had several moments that have sat him back in his chair. He's been astonished. But what he goes on to say is it's really expensive. And given how much we've been growing, we're out of GPUs. And so we need more. We're going to get them. Hundreds of thousands are coming soon. Pretty sure we'll use every one of them we can rack up. So you get something like that. And you would think, well, that's a positive. And then you also have news, and I've referred to the capital expenditure plans of many of the hyperscalers, and then the fact that private credit has gotten into this game in terms of where they are actually buying or putting up the money for our data centers.
And that's the news we saw yesterday with Meta and Apollo. So Apollo is financing Meta about $35 billion to build more data centers. The indices are turning green, folks. S&P 500, 586. Archer's up about 4%. The Qs are up a little bit. Costco is green. Robinhood is very close to getting green. NVIDIA is still at 118, but not at 116 anymore. SMCI down 3%. Google going green, along with Amazon, Palantir as well, back above 80. Tesla at 2 81. With the Apollo 35 billion in financing for data centers, I think that's obviously very bullish for Meta, but also that means there's going to be a lot more GPUs that are bought from NVIDIA. Same thing from OpenAI, same thing from XAI, same thing from the Meta data centers that they want to create. Also, Meta is coming out with a standalone AI app to compete with ChatGPT. So, you know, there's a Grok app, there's a ChatGPT app, there's a Gemini app. Meta is going to be releasing their own AI app. And that's probably going to be utilizing the current GPUs they have right now to create their Llama language model as a consumer-facing product. So, I mean, it just really doesn't look like across the board the demand is slowing up for NVIDIA. The PE continues to collapse. At this point, their PE is now 27 as the stock price goes down. But the growth is not collapsing. And whatever fears the market has on the growth collapsing, based on the available data that we can at least see, it doesn't feel like that's the case. I think, again, it's more due to uncertainty around tariffs. But as of now, NVIDIA right here at 119, down about 2% on the day. Fear and greed is at 16. Wow, dude. Holy crap. Look at that. That's the lowest it's been since when's the last time we got here? Let's see the timeline. Last time we got to 16 on fear and greed. Yeah, August 5th. Look at that. Last time it was at 16 was August freaking 5th. The closest we got to it was December 24th, or the JPOW press release sell-off, December 19th. That was when we were at 22. But we really haven't seen this type of fear since the yen carry trade. Yeah. I don't know, dude. It feels always so elementary to be like, well, you know, you buy when it's extreme fear, you sell when it's extreme greed. But it's like it really has worked out like that. Like if you put the fear and greed index chart that we were looking at on top of the S&P 500, it's pretty damn similar. When you get to extreme greed, you see a sell-off. When you get to extreme fear, you see people start buying in, or a little bit of a bottom. I think here's a question for you guys. What is the one thing, if you had to put on your Michael Burry hat right now, what is the one thing that you think you know about why the economy is going to collapse that the market doesn't know? What is that one thing? If you had to be, I'll try to do it as well. If you had to be super bearish, what is one thing, like subprime mortgage type of bearish, right? Something you've discovered that the market simply hasn't. And you're in your room with your 5 screens and you're looking at the data and you're like, oh my God, I need to get as many puts as possible. What is that one piece of data that's out there? Because I feel like that's also something that is an intellectual thought project that's important to engage in, right? Can we find something that's out there that's kind of crazy? And I haven't heard any of these crazy theses. Eggs. Yeah, maybe there's a way to do it with eggs. Getting a girlfriend. All right, I know your stock market portfolios are down, but you guys don't have to be mean, okay? You guys don't have to throw shots at me just because you're losing thousands of dollars. VIX is too high. Trump, but see, Trump is known. That's not like subprime mortgage. So like that's not known or something, right? We're talking about something that's completely unknown, that's different, that the market's not paying attention to. Population collapse. Okay, that's an interesting one. That seems like more of a multi-decade bear thesis versus a short-term bear thesis. Like I'm talking about something that could happen in the next couple of years, right? Michael Burry in 2005 came up with this thesis, and by 2008 it had played out. He was early, but he ended up being right. In the next 3 years, what is the thing that takes everything down? Taiwan, honestly, dude, Taiwan could be like, there's been some updates over the past week of China getting a bit more aggressive with Taiwan. I mean, I don't expect a full-on war, but if you're like a Taiwanese expert around geopolitics and you know it's happening, that forget tanking the markets, that would nuke the markets, right? Like that's just like, we're done. I don't even know if like, is it worth owning puts at that point? Like, it's just like everything goes to shit if that happens. You know what's funny? If you watch The Big Short, Michael Burry, the market had gotten so bad by the time his thesis was correct, he couldn't even sell his puts. He had to take 30% less than the face value of his puts that were up like a gajillion percent because the market makers didn't have the liquidity to actually make him even on the puts because that's how bad the crash was, which is crazy. Right now, he still ended up making $1 billion, but it's just that wild that when things collapse to such an extent, even the bears can't get liquid on this. I'm seeing some tariffs. I don't know if that's like a different one. New coronavirus. Yeah, I guess that's an easy argument to point to. Rklb, by the way, back at 19, showing some nice strength right here, only down 4%. The coronavirus thing definitely would be something if there's cases of it that people haven't thought about before. Roaring Kitty tweeting. That would definitely be interesting if he came back. Tariffs. Again, I think tariffs are more known than not. A meteor. Oh, did you guys see that headline by the asteroid? That NASA said there was a 3.2% that an asteroid would hit us by 2035. That went down to 0. So they readjusted their ratings the other day and they said, yeah, the asteroid's like, it's not going to hit us. But that did have a 3% chance, which 3% is a hell of a chance, dude, for an asteroid to ruin the Earth. Like sometimes you remember, like you're just on this planet and anything could happen. And like, you know, the dinosaurs were walking around one day. They didn't know what was coming next. But it looks like we're not going to get the asteroid, which is nice. Albert says the debt, but the debt is known and the markets are trying to do, or at least Elon's trying to do something about the debt, right? Which is Doge, which so far is at least reducing some of the waste that we have. So I don't know if that's the most unknown fear that's out there. TLT 9191 currently right now. AI turning against us, that I think could be something. And you would have to be deep in AI research to believe, or you would probably have to be working at OpenAI or Anthropic, et cetera, to kind of see how bad it's getting. That's more like a doomsday scenario as well. I'm trying to think, what is a macro reason underlying in the economy right now that is unknown? You can't really point to credit card debt. You can't point to tariffs. You can't point to the 10-year. All this stuff is known. And the reason it has to be unknown or really under the radar is because if it's known, then people are trading on that. Like there was like 5 people in the world that understood the subprime mortgage crisis back in 2008. And as a result, that's why those people made money, right? And every time they tried to convince someone of the thesis, no one else believed them. I'm talking about that type of a scenario because that's how the market's sentiment feels, like that there's some scary boogeyman that's about to collapse everything. And I don't know if I see that. Wow, Rklb, bro, only down 2.5%. Talk about buying the dip, baby. 1933. Looks like we are getting some momentum to the upside and people are stepping in. Yen carry trade. So I don't know if we're going to have another yen carry trade, but the yen carry trade was a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Something that no one knew about, but if you even knew about it for a couple days before it would happen, you were able to buy puts or short the market and make a ton of money. The Epstein files, dude, they came out yesterday. Everything was redacted. The Epstein files didn't have anything interesting. Now the government says it's part 1 and they're coming out with more parts, but yeah, like if you looked at the Epstein files last night, almost everything was redacted. There was nothing really interesting there. So that's still a nothing burger until they come out with the names. NVIDIA went green. Holy crap. NVIDIA went green. That means we're at 120, right? Wow. 120. Okay. There you go. There you go. NVIDIA's green. Or at least trying to hold on to its green. Rklb as well, dude. Rklb gets back to 20. What a recovery, dude. Down 20%, back to 20. I mean, see, and again, like, was Rklb absurd at $16 when the market opened? At least right now, the market's saying, yeah, that was stupid. And we would have to get another 12% decline for it to get back to those levels, or 14% decline for it to get back to those levels. And I don't know if we're gonna see that happen. Robots replacing jobs. Yeah, I mean, me and Steve talked about that yesterday. That's definitely a long-term issue. Don't know in the short term if that's gonna kind of ruin everything today. Okay, let's get an update on some other macro data we have right now. Let's take a look at this, and then we'll keep going from there.
Stevens, she joins us from our headquarters. Pippa.
Hey, David. Well, even the reduced tariff of 10% on Canadian energy could rock energy systems and lead to higher prices for consumers. The U.S. is the world's largest oil producer, but we still import roughly 6.6 million barrels per day of crude, more than 60% of which comes from Canada. Much of that is what's known as sour crude. The U.S. primarily produces light crude oil, and so refiners can't just switch gears. Patrick Tahan from Gas Buddy said this could ultimately lead to as much as a 25-cent increase on prices at the pump in the short term. Now, should Canada retaliate with export tariffs, prices could go even higher. Now, on the nuclear side, the impact could be even larger. The U.S. imports almost 100% of its uranium, with more than a quarter coming from Canada. As Segra Capital put it, the only credible path to U.S. fuel security is to have stronger ties with our northern neighbor. Now, much of that uranium comes from Cameco, which has tariff clauses in many of its contracts, meaning the off-taker will have to pay the higher price. In regulated utility markets, think Dominion, Duke, Southern Company, and Entergy, fuel is a pass-through cost. So if the utility is paying a higher price, that ultimately winds up on consumers' bills. Guys?
I know you mentioned uranium. We are expecting this deal between the Ukrainian President Zelensky and President Trump, where the U.S. would share in profits from rare earth minerals. And I just wonder how big of a player Ukraine is and whether this is any kind of game changer for the United States.
So they are certainly a big player in terms of their reserves, but the problem is it's very different to have proven reserves and to have actually accessible reserves. And there are some parallels here with what we see with Greenland in the sense that their geological surveys show all these deposits. But if it's really hard to access, it might not be economical. And that's really why we haven't seen Ukraine be a larger player thus far. They have all these deposits, but so far, prior to Russia's invasion, they weren't able to attract foreign capital to have that investment, to have those partnerships in order to access all of that. And so this is certainly, beneficial for Ukraine in the sense that they need that foreign capital to come in. Of course, we're still waiting on some of the finer details on how this partnership would actually work in the percentage breakdown here. But if we are actually able to tap those, it could be a game changer. However, this is probably at least a decade plus down the line, given how long it does take to bring some of these deposits online, especially in regions that Russia has annexed.
Okay, so that's going to be important, dude. How that deal ends up playing out, what negotiations there are, and then if that leads to an overall end of the war. Obviously, it could be a broader catalyst for more peace, and that would be good for markets, but we have to see if that plays out. Rklb is very close to going green on the day, folks. Freaking 23 cents away from going green on the day. Grab goes green, hoodie trying to make its way back to 50. Google almost green. NVDA is trying to get back to 121. Looks like we have some buyers stepping in at this 10-15 time frame, and they're buying stocks. SoundHound up 12%. This thing was barely up 2%. S&P up 1/3%. Berkshire is actually up today with everything else, 1.33%. JP Morgan's up. Carnival Cruise is up. TFC is up 46.25. Spotify goes green. S&P again up 1/3%. Meta going green 6.58. Rklb now 11 cents away from going green. 5 cents away from going green. We're gonna have to ring the bell if Rklb goes green. We're gonna have to ring the bell just for fighting from the depths of hell to get back, even if it's not a new dollar that Rklb is getting to in terms of a price target. We got to ring the bell if Rklb goes green. 9 cents away. Let me check resistance at 20. If it fought all the way to get here, then my year to date went from 5% to 12% now. So, this is why it's hard to be emotional about the markets. Things can change so freaking quickly when it comes to this stuff. $20 resistance for Rklb is 10,000 shares. That's not really any resistance. Let's see if we can get there. SoFi goes green. Okay, there you go. SoFi 1439. That's up 2.2%. Why is the market green right now? I don't see any headlines. I think it's kind of technical. I'll check if there's any headlines, but from what I'm looking at, there's no Fed talk, no macro data. PCE came out in the morning. It seems like buyers are just stepping in right now. One headline is Intel is delaying its Ohio chip factory to 2030. Is Intel down on that news? Intel's up 5%. Wow. I guess delaying that is good for Intel. NVIDIA 121.4. Rklb 1 cent away. Oh, I think it was there. Was it there? It was there for like 2 seconds there. I think it got there. Let's see if it gets back. It was there for like a millisecond, bro. 2 cents away from going green. Michigan numbers, but the Michigan numbers didn't come out today, right? No, they're not. At least they're not out right now. Do we have them come at 10 a.m.? Do we have anything? No, nothing today. Oh, no, we do. No, we don't. No, never mind. We don't. Oh, we got Chicago PMI. That came in at 45.5 versus 39.5. That's better than expected, but still, I don't know if that's the main reason. All right, there we go. We are green. Green on Rklb, fighting down from 22% to green on the day. We got to ring the bell for Rklb. All right. It's nice to hear the bell. It's been a minute since we heard the bell on some good news. We're back. at least for now. Hopefully it doesn't tank in the next 15 minutes when we get to 10:30. But still, it's nice to have some good bell on the green. This feels like a rug pull is coming. I hope not, dude. Imagine Rklb goes back down to 16 in like an hour. Dude, if it does, we are in a volatile, emotional market. If Rklb can't hold this level after being down this much and recovering, that means we are very, very emotional right now. Trade Desk is green. AppLovin is green. S&P goes green. SoundHound up 14%. Congrats to whoever is in SoundHound. Disney's up 2%. SLG's up 0.2%. And then SoFi right here up 2%. Where is Palantir? Palantir 83. Not bad. 78 to 83, down 1.5% instead of being down 7%. Didn't this happen yesterday? Yes, this happened exactly like it's happening right now yesterday, but it happened at 3:45. So I guess in the next 5 hours, when I get on the market close, we'll see how bad it reverses or if it can sustain. Granted, it is the last day of February. You might have some people maybe just buying stocks because they think we're done with February and we're going to get a reversal. Maybe that's what's happening, potentially. But it could also be a little bit of a bull trap. So I guess we will see. Bitcoin as well. Yeah, Bitcoin getting some love, 4.5%. There you go, 83.62. Still down significantly from the highs. I mean, last night when I saw it go below 80, I was like, wow, dude. Like people are really selling it off, but getting some buyers to come in right here at 83,611. Here is a preview of the podcast that's coming out today with Figure. So posted a small clip of it yesterday. Again, it'll be on the new podcast channel at 12 p.m. But for those that are curious about the broader AI exponential growth curves for NVIDIA and for robotics, hopefully this will be one of those podcasts to help enlighten more about what's going on.
So it's funny you bring up phones. Apple does about 90 billion in revenue a quarter. 45 billion of that is the iPhone. Is there a world where 45 billion is going to be pennies when it comes to the amount of robots that can scale? As in, Figure is not going to worry about doing 45 billion a quarter in terms of robot revenue. This is going to be hundreds of billions, aka trillions of dollars of market cap around robots.
It'll be like trillions of dollars of revenue. Yeah.
Okay. So it's funny you bring up.
It is crazy, bro. Look at the robot. Look at the robot right there, bro. The freaking robot. That is insane. Like when you guys see the podcast, it's going to be an hour of this robot walking back and forth. And it's just walking in between us. And it's insane. It's a real robot doing real stuff. It's crazy. So hopefully it'll be a fun podcast. I think it's cool. I think it'll enlighten a lot of people around NVIDIA because we talk a lot about NVIDIA. We talk a lot about Tesla and humanoids. We talk about the growth opportunity when it comes to robotics. But the fact that robot was in the background, it'll also be really fun to see it. Wow, Rklb 20 freaking Dolores for Rklb. Goes from 15 or 16.50 at the lows to $20. Talk about a reversal. We'll see if it has some legs underneath it over the next hours. NVIDIA as well up 1%. SoFi's up a little bit. Maybe this is a sympathy bounce, but it is a bounce. And it makes sense just given how oversold some of these names got. This could also be algorithmically driven, but we are getting some green. Amit, do you own any Grab 2027 calls? I own too many Grab 2027 calls. So the answer is yes. I own so many to the point where Robin is not letting me buy anymore. So that is a big bet I've taken, and we got 2 years to have that bet play out. Ironically, dude, like even with Grab not 10xing on earnings like people thought, I'm up on those calls right now. Like how much am I up? I am up 8% on those calls, which is 8% on a big position is a decent chunk of cash. So one of the most volatile option strategies I have has been the safest option strategy because Grab is kind of normalized at that 470 to 490 range, and I bought them at 450. So as long as we don't revisit 450, which look, if we do, I think that's an easy buy the dip, but let's see if we stay above it, then those options should be continuing to be up. TMDX is up 3.7%. Celsius is down 0.7%. Honest is up 5%. Snowflake is up about 1%. SMH semiconductor ETFs up about 1%, and Joby as well up 0.74%. Archer is up 5%. eBay is up 1.35%. When is TJ coming back? All right, so I haven't talked to TJ about doing our segment because TJ, if you guys don't know, he switched from Robinhood to another brokerage, which is Tasty Trade. And to my understanding, he sold out of all of his Robinhood because he was so pissed off at Robinhood. So I don't know if we're going to do the segment. If he wants to do the segment, I have to kind of hit him up. I also, quite frankly, I don't know if he's used to using Tasty Trade yet. And if he shares a screen, like, would you guys be able to understand the platform? Because Robinhood's very easy to understand. You guys are looking at, something very basic, whether it's selling calls, puts, and you can like make sense of it. Tasty Trade, I've looked at the platform, and if you tried streaming with it, it would be a bit hard to understand what the hell's going on. Let's just say it's not a user-friendly platform. So the segment that we do every week, now that he's not on Robinhood, has been a little shifted, and so I've got to work it out with him. But we will figure it out. But yeah, he's out of Robinhood, dude. He completely left Robinhood. He's like, screw this, bro. I'm done. They pissed him off enough, and he officially left. So put in the chat. Does anyone here use Tasty Trade? Does anyone use it as like their main brokerage or even their options brokerage? Let me know in the chat how many people actually use it. Why was he pissed at him? Well, they said that he had some suspicious activity on the platform, and he thought he didn't have any suspicious activity on the platform, whatever. Like, I think it could have been a communication thing that would worked out, but at this point he was just so annoyed at them that he didn't really care about communicating, which is fair. I get it. Like, I understand. And so he decided to leave. There's also some general things that, like, Robinhood, you can't sell more than 200. You can't buy more than 200 options at once, right? Like, and that's really annoying for someone like TJ that's selling tens of thousands of them a day. Like, to only be able to do 200 at once is like really annoying. So there's like little idiosyncratic things that he's been annoyed with for a while. And then once they said he had some suspicious activity or whatever, which could have just been like a false flag on their part. It could have just been an algo that went the wrong way, anything like that. That's when he had enough of using it. But yeah, that's why he's not on anymore. Is Robinhood at 50? Are we above 50? Oh, wow. 50, dude. This thesis of 50 being support is really playing out, dude. For the past 3 days, gets back above 50, which is not bad. Now it falls below 50 by the end of the day, but still getting back above it is incredible. People who only know Robinhood get very scared when looking at a full feature trading interface like Tasty, TOS, etc. Yeah, I agree. And I mean, TJ, to his credit, he's learning it right now, right? And so I think when he gets really comfortable with learning it, that's when he'll come on the channel and probably show it to you guys. But I'll speak for myself, dude. If I had to use Tasty Trade, I would be stuck, dude. I just like the simplicity of Robinhood. Like, first of all, I don't have enough time in the day to sit down and learn a new platform. Like there's just so many things happening throughout the day. There's so many meetings, so many different things. You got to go here, you got to go there, you got to work on this, work on that. Like, to actually self-teach myself a new platform, I don't have the patience, and I don't have the time to care about it. So for me, it's like I have zero interest, and Robinhood's not bad enough for me to get that excited about it. In fact, I think they're best in class for me. So, and even if the fills are a little shittier, like that's just not something I obsess about. That's not something that's going to make me spend so much time in my day to learn a new platform. But that's also part of Robinhood's moat, right? The fact that I don't even want to learn something that's slightly more complicated, even if it's not that complicated, is one of the reasons I stay on Hood. Tesla 291. Wow. So we're getting a bit of a reversal here. That's nice. We got 6 minutes until 10:30. We'll see if that slam ends up playing out. Amit, have you dabbled in Legend? Not really. Again, I'm not actively trading every day. So Legend is for people who are like day trading and stuff. So that's another reason I don't use it. Also, I don't love Legend that much, dude. Like, I'm not in it every single day and looking at it. Like, I'm not a trader. B, I just really love the simple Robinhood user interface that I get to use every single day. I'm not that complicated when it comes to it. So for the traders that love it, I mean, they're using it. And Vlad said they're making about $50 million a year, their run rate on it. So there's definitely people that are using it. I'm just, I'm not constantly staring at that stuff. I think eventually, if I get into more swing trading and day trading, I'm not really there yet, then yeah, I would use a platform like that. But right now I'm just selling puts and selling calls, and that to me is working. And you have a couple weeks to a month in between your positions, and you monitor them every day, but you don't like literally obsess and look at them every single candlestick up or down because you're not trading them, right? Palantir's almost green. NVIDIA's at 122. Palantir freaking 84.26. That's 54 cents away from green. SoFi almost at 14.50. Hoodie almost at 50.50. Meta's at 6.60. Yeah, everything's going green. S&P 0.5%. We're getting one of those green Fridays that we got a couple of weeks ago. It's been a while since we had a green Friday, but we're getting it here right now. Amit talks about how good Hood interface is, but streams on Webull 6 hours a day. I don't know how many times I have to tell you guys That HUD streaming interface sucks. I've said it over and over again. You guys make me sound like a HUD bear every time I say it. Jason already thinks I'm a HUD bear, but HUD streaming interface on Legend sucks. It's not good. I told Vlad to his face. I was like, dude, we tried using it on NVIDIA earnings 2 quarters ago, and like the whole chat was confused at what they were looking at. And he said, yeah, I know, we're working on it. I was like, all right, cool. You're working on it. That's great. But in the meantime, Webull definitely has the best streaming interface. Webull really for the past 4 years, dude, like from people who have been streaming on Webull or using it to stream, it's always been like a really good interface. Legend doesn't even have the quote tag. You can't even see that Archer's at 855 on Legend. Like it's not even going to show you that. It's like, all right, so that's just not the way to do it. Rklb up 2%, dude. Holy freaking crap. Wow. 2038, 2%. 2 freaking percent. It can look better than I think you think it does. All right. If anyone wants to send me a picture of their Legend platform on Twitter, feel free to DM me. But imagine you're streaming to thousands of people. And imagine you have to actually show tickers and charts and, you know, people don't have to squint to see the price. Like, send me what your setup would look like, because I've tried setting it up multiple times. And every time I'm like, this looks horrible. This is not something you can show to thousands of people. It's something you can do in your own room, right? If you're trading, but it's just not something that is applicable for YouTube. But if anyone has a better setup, send it to me and I'll try mimicking it and see if it works. But Webull so far is the best. Soundhound, dude, freaking 18%. Holy crap. My goodness, 16.9%. Yeah, it's a green reversal. It's a green reversal. Let me see if there's any Fed talk. If there's any other headlines. Maybe there's a headline we missed for why something is happening. Fear and greed is back at 18. It was at 16, so we got a little bit of an increase there. Trump administration and Musk's Doge plan to fire nearly all CFPB staff and agency wind down. That's the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, right? Doge plans to fire all of the CFPB staff. Huh. Okay. So I guess unemployment's going up. How many people work in the How many people work in the CFPB? Is that like tens of thousands of people? 1,700. Wow. So this is the headline from CNBC. It looks like they're firing 1,700 people in the CFPB. Okay. It'd be funny if the market's rallying on that, dude. That'd be yes, no more protection for consumers. Let's rally. Everyone can be degen even more. Like if that's the reason the market's rallying. Can you guys hear me or am I frozen? No, I'm good. I'm good. Yes, I should be good. Did we free? No, we freezed. All right, I'm here from this side. Dude, my Mac is freaking out. Hold on. Okay. Now we're back to normal. Dude, what was that? The 1030 slam nuked my whole setup, bro. Holy crap. Okay, I think we're good. We're good, right? We're good. All right, we're better. Damn, dude, that was that's what happened when we saw the consumer finance news. Like everything just got shut down. All right, we're good now. We're good, right? We're good. Okay, cool. The hiring freeze is affecting Amit. Yeah, dude. Holy crap. I went to my second computer because this first one was lagging, but we're back. Okay, cool. Yeah, someone called the CFPB. Goodness gracious, dude. Yo, if that was the 1030 slam, if it was my stream freezing out for the 1030 slam, I'll take that L. I'll take that L. As long as stocks stay green, I will take the 1030 slam for everybody else. Ruda, thank you for the super chat. Appreciate you. I will take that 1030 slam. Looks like we're holding up, bro. Looks like we are holding up. VIX is dropping up. Yep, the VIX is dropping off right now as well. Doge got a bit. Dude, but that's crazy. 1,700 employees is a decent chunk of them. I would not be surprised for the unemployment rate to go up in the next 2 quarters, given how much firing they're doing. And then I guess the question is CPFB, how important is that for those employees? I guess Doge thinks not that much, at least for now. What is the 1030 slam? So if you're new here, the 1030 slam is basically when a lot of market makers, hedge funds, etc. Jane Street is one of the most common ones that statistically it's been shown tends to do this. Decides to slam people out of the markets. So algorithms come in, they take stocks down further. They try to get juicier prices on different equities. They make pennies within certain trades. So any stock that can fall a certain percentage, they can come in, swoop it up on the spread, be able to sell it right back after 1030. And so historically, we've seen certain firms get very aggressive around the 1030 time. I don't know exactly why 1030, but that's when it is historically, statistically has tended to have. People have legit done studies on this. And it creates a little bit of weakness, right? Same thing happens at around 1 p.m. Why? That one's a little bit more logical. People go out for lunch, and when people leave their trading desks, they don't want to see any crazy violent action because they're not on the floor making trades. So you tend to see some flatness. And by the time they're back from lunch, that's when we tend to see some more volatility. NVIDIA right here, 123.5, dude. Wow. 2.7% up on NVIDIA. 2.7%. Rklb, $20.23, up 2%. SoFi, $14.50. Tesla, $291. Robinhood again, 50. And then is Palantir green? Grab is green. Palantir is trying to go green. 50 cents away from Palantir going green as well. That's my new podcast name, right? 1030 Slam. That's got to be the new podcast name. I still don't have a name yet. For now, it's going to be the Amit Cook-Rager podcast, but eventually we'll figure out a name. 83 on Bitcoin as well. 83.2 on Bitcoin. Yeah, dude, everyone's year to dates must have kind of changed in the past 20 minutes, dude. Holy crap. Now, granted, we saw this yesterday. We saw all this green yesterday, and then it went away. So I guess by the end of the day, we'll see if there's any other macro data that comes out. But the flying V, 100%, dude. It's the flying V. Given it's Friday towards the end of the day, I don't know. I don't know if we need to have that much volatility towards the end of the day. I mean, the Thursday before Friday makes more sense to see that much pain. Also, money market data, again, yesterday we saw 60 billion. So that data was not necessarily the most bullish for stocks. But the beautiful thing about the market is that once the news gets baked in, and I've talked about this before, but it's in, it's over, you're done, right? Like once it gets priced in, it's priced in. Like the market is able to rip the Band-Aid off of bad news so quickly and move on because it's like, all right, cool, whatever. We move on. It's really phenomenal how the market's able to do it. Some bad stuff happens, price it in, and then you move on and you go towards the future. And I think COVID is a perfect example of it, right? In March 2020, everything tanked. And then immediately the market was like, wait a second, we're about to print a lot of money. And then we had a V shape of V shapes and we went to the moon until 2022. So it is quite interesting sometimes that the market just does not care after the news is out, even if they care in the short term. Rklb right here at $20. Robinhood just falling below 50, getting a little bit of weakness from some of these green candles. NVIDIA right here, 123, back down to 122.8. S&P as well, 587. But still green on the day. That all changes when it's a bear market for real, though. Yeah, and I mean, we saw that in 2022. It changed pretty aggressively here. Amid, why is Roblox up so much? You know, Roblox was a dead stock back in 2023. In 2024, particularly in October, that's when it really started ramping up. I don't know what the catalyst is on Roblox. I know their earnings have been relatively good. I think some bigger like institutions got involved in the name and they've been putting out more research on it. But 63.91, this thing was stuck at 30 for a long time. Kathy is up, I think, a decent amount on Roblox as well. I've never been interested in the sort of metaverse like thesis they have about people living inside of this virtual world, but a lot of kids use it. I think they have like 80 million daily active users, and so there is momentum there. 5.64% on Roblox, 63.85 right now. Where's real estate stocks? Yeah, let's look at them. So SLG, we saw that REIT was up. Where's Lennar, the home builders? Yeah, the home builders are green today as well. Interesting. KB Home is also green. REITs are green. Realty Income is green. REITs are green. Rocket Mortgage, they had a good earnings yesterday as well. They're up 9%. As rates come down, that'll be good for them. And we are seeing some momentum go to real estate. Fear and Greed is now at 19, up from 16. So that is up as well currently right now. Amit, do you see a drop in yields unlocking more demand in housing? Yes, because we will have mortgage rates come down. I mean, you guys heard Chris's story yesterday, right? That although there's this housing market collapse, people have hoarded cash and they are ready to outbid you in cash in certain parts of the market. And he can't buy a house because people are outbidding him with cash. So I do think if we get mortgage rates actually below 6% or even anywhere close to 6%, yeah, we are definitely going to see housing demand pick up, which would be nice, but I'm not counting on mortgage rates to get that low anytime soon. I think it's going to take a little bit of time to get there. AMD is up 1.27%. Yes, AMD is also up 1.27% here right now. Karp did a new interview. I don't know if you guys saw that. Karp did a new interview with Barry Weiss at the Free Press. That interview was about an hour long, and there's some good moments in that. So that dropped yesterday. Q's, by the way, right at 5:02. But that new interview came out yesterday as well. AMD is up after being torched for months. Yeah, dude. I mean, a lot of people started buying this thing at 130, so it has obviously been a tough DCA, but it's at least showing some signs of life being down. No, not Barry White. Barry Weiss. Barry Weiss. She's a journalist at the Free Press. Yeah, she interviewed Peter Thiel a couple months ago as well. I'm going to try to see if I can get some moments from that interview because I was watching a little bit of it. I haven't finished it yet, but it was Karp being Karp, doing Karp things. It was funny. There was one part of the moment where she was like, you know, how did you build such a successful defense company? And he was like, well, our commercial business isn't too bad either. So he was just like, yeah, you know, we're kind of crushing it in commercial. He's continuing to make it evident that they're not slowing down anytime soon when it comes to their broader commercial ambitions. And then again, we have the Palantir XAI partnership as well that happened the other day. Here's a couple clips of it. So here's one clip of Karp talking about Silicon Valley and the nature of technology right now.
Become unmoored from a sense of having a sense of purpose beyond really the market.
I think our educational institutions have really done us a disservice. One of the reasons I wanted to come here was, and what is that disservice? Well, the primary disservice was somehow teaching people that it's better to believe in nothing than into something. Whatever that something is, like what you're really learning at an elite school is, the world is already understandable, and you should just follow this preordained arc, and that preordained arc has a set of steps where you say you believe in something, but actually you believe in your self-advancement.
It's a good one. I'll try to get some more clips out of this, but it's definitely a good one where he goes very deep philosophically, but also about the nature of Palantir's business. Rklb right here up about 0.6%. We had a good comment in the chat as well that makes sense. If the CFPB is gone, it does free the mortgage companies to be way more competitive with their rates. given they don't have this agency that's looking over everything they do. So that is a fair point. If Doge is serious about getting rid of the agency, essentially, which is the headline we got a couple minutes ago, yeah, that could be a tailwind for a lot of the mortgage stocks like Rocket Mortgage. And that's a reason we could be seeing it green here right now. Palantir slightly in the red, still trying to go green, has not flipped green for the day yet. Bitcoin 83, Robinhood 49.72, AMD at 100, RKT again 13.91. And then you got Snowflake right here up 1%. IONQ, some of the quantum names also up a little bit, 1% on the day. Let's see what other headlines we've got going on. Nothing too crazy today. Kind of a little bit of a boring Friday. PCE was fine. We talked about the savings rate. We talked about gold outflows, crypto outflows. Oh, take a look at this. This is what people bought on Fidelity yesterday. These are the top buys and sells in Fidelity. If you look at the list, it's kind of the same typical stocks. NVIDIA, Tesla, VOO, Palantir was number 4. SOXL, SMCI, AMD, Amazon SPY, Google, Microsoft, Meta, TSM, Broadcom, MicroStrategy, Apple. Like the reason a lot of these names have been getting hit so much is because everyone's trading the same names across every brokerage. And so some of the more undervalued names or the safer plays like a Verizon, they don't get that much volume, but the ones that are seeing tech essentially get hit. And it's really, a lot of it's coming from retail, right? So retail is really selling off a lot of tech, which just begs the question, is that reasonable? Or is that institutions buying up those shares? Because Google at freaking 15 times 2026 earnings is stupid. And most institutions know that, whereas retail might not. I guess we're going to find out in the coming weeks. Thoughts on buying the Tesla dip right now? So I bought Tesla at 288 yesterday. Look, again, this is why it's so weird with Tesla, or it's so nuanced with Tesla. It's like, I could see Tesla going to 250 very easily if Q1 sucks. And I don't think anyone would be surprised by that. But then you have these macro tailwinds around FSD and robotics that if they have any piece of news that's exciting about that, the street starts to get, really excited and they think they're missing the story and they start buying it up and they start chasing it, which is what happened back in December. And so I think you buy Tesla at the price where you're comfortable DCAing, and you try not to have a toxic mentality of thinking you bought it at 288 and then it went to 281, right? Or you bought it at 350 and now it's at 288. Like, yeah, it sucks. But if you're buying Tesla, you've got to be buying it because you think this is a $10 trillion company. Like, otherwise, I don't know why you're buying Tesla, right? You've got to be buying it because it's worth $1 trillion. You think it's going to at least 5, if not 10 trillion over the next 20 years. And you think it could be one of the most valuable companies on the planet. Which means your DCA just ends up being a real DCA. And I guess you don't overthink it too much. But those are kind of my thoughts on Tesla. So I don't know. I'm waiting for Tesla to get a little bit more support. I'd be happy to buy it again if it gets above 300, but I want to see if it can actually get there or if it continues to stay down here. Did Amit sell NVIDIA? No, I did not sell NVIDIA. In fact, I bought NVIDIA yesterday. I now have 590 shares of NVIDIA. My average is 125.38. So I'm thinking of buying the extra 10 shares and just rounding it up to 600. And then I guess starting next week, we'll start selling 6 covered calls per week on NVIDIA, decently out of the money, and try to reduce that adjusted cost basis, hopefully closer to 120. But that's kind of my goal with NVIDIA right now. Amit, do you trade on Robinhood and not Webull? If so, why? Yeah, I just like Robinhood. Like, again, I like Webull for streaming. I like Robinhood for placing my trades. So I've never really used Webull to trade. I know some people like it, and it's not a bad platform at all. I've just never, used it. But yeah, I like Webull for streaming and Robinhood for actually doing the trades. Tyler says I should have sold some puts on Rklb this morning when I was thinking about it. Yeah, the premiums must have been. We didn't even look at the premiums on Rklb, but the premiums must have been insane. I mean, even now the premiums are still probably good, but when it was at 16, I mean, if you sold a $15 put, the premiums probably were incredible. And again, why is that happening? Because the closer the stock price is to the strike price, the more premium you get because the probability of getting to the strike price is quicker. When the stock's at 20, you sell a put for 15, it has to go down $5 to actually get assigned. So your premium gets lower because your probability gets lower. Therefore, your return percentage gets lower. But if the stock's at 16 and you write a put for 15 because you're confident that it's not going to be at 16 anymore, it's going to gap up to 20, then your premium significantly increases. But your risk increases as well because now if it falls $1, you're in the money on that put. And you're going to be assigned those shares. Amit, could the Max 7 evaluations be the new normal, not low? It's a good question. So the question is, could Max 7 valuations be the new normal? Meaning it's not really discounted. It's just where they should have always been. I think people have to look at the numbers and make the decision for themselves. NVIDIA at 27 times earnings, to me, is not a new normal. That's undervalued. Google at 15 times 2026 earnings. Now it's at 16 times. Is that a new normal? No, that's undervalued. Meta at 24 times. That's undervalued. Now, Apple at 37 times, yeah, that's one I've never really fully understood. Tesla at 98 times doesn't make any sense, but obviously, if you're buying Tesla, you're not buying it for the PE, you're buying it for just exponential growth. So I would say Google, Meta, NVIDIA, definitively undervalued. Apple is overvalued, even though Apple probably will still go up. Microsoft is definitely overvalued, in my opinion, even after this drawdown, because they're just not growing. However, it's one of the more safer sources of revenue because they're not as contingent on search or stuff like that. They have a really good cloud business. NVIDIA to me is deeply undervalued. Amazon, I think, is not undervalued or overvalued. I think it's rather fair valued. I do think Amazon will do well over time, but their operating margins need to increase for them to really see multiple expansion. So I think at 210, it's not like deeply undervalued or deeply overvalued. And then Tesla, you could make a case for undervalued, overvalued, but that's a whole different question. So no, I think the answer to your question is the Max 7 have not begun some new normal because they can keep buying back their stock. They have amazing free cash flows. They have ridiculous net income. Interest rates will affect them, but it's not going to affect them as much as a growth stock like a Rklb or a Robinhood or a Palantir. And as a result, they should be ready to handle any economic climate. Like a recession would be bad for Meta because less people would be buying stuff, less advertisers would be advertising, Meta would be making less money. But it's not a death sentence to Meta. Whereas for like the Trade Desk, which is in the advertising space, but it's not, like Meta, maybe it's not a death sentence, but it could be pretty disruptive if they don't have other sources of income to or diversified revenue streams to supplement the lack of demand that they're seeing. Same thing for Amazon. People might not start buying that much stuff on Amazon if Amazon collapses or if we have an economic collapse, but that doesn't mean Amazon goes out of business because their cloud revenues are going to be relatively stable regardless of if people buy stuff or not. But I think the Mag 7 are undervalued. I just think there's a reason they're undervalued. And the reason is the market is scared and uncertain about what's going on geopolitically with tariffs. And that's okay. Like, I really think that's okay. Now, the other growth stocks that have been hit badly that are not the Mag 7, those I think have nothing to do with tariffs. Those I think they just got overextended, like a Palantir and like a Robinhood. Everything else, I think it's more so just market volatility and fear of what we're seeing right now. Square right here at 64.61, Roblox at 64. You got the NASDAQ right here, 18,000. Let's finish up with Ryan Detrick because we didn't finish up that clip. And let's see his final thoughts on this market, and then we'll keep going from there.
Are bonds, Ryan, rallying because of good things happening or because of bad things happening? Do bonds ever rally for good things? The only thing I can admit, we have had one of the, all the president's men. We have one of them on, Kevin Hassett, who says that in his view, the 10-year yield is dropping because of Doge. Because we're reining in government spending at least at some point, or better than it was, and that's bullish for the bond market. Or I could just as easily make the case that all these things we're doing could slow the economy, and that's why rates are falling.
Yeah. Well, Joe, first things first, enjoy the Oscars this weekend. I know it's a big weekend for you there, but listen, we know we have this growth scare that's coming in right now, right? And that's kind of some of the rationale for the lower yields. I'll tell you what, though, we're maybe on the lonely camp, if you will. When we look at inflation data, we're going to get more here, in a couple hours, I know. There are still many reasons think inflation's improving, right? Why has inflation been sticky? Because of shelter, because of auto insurance, and those are real. People pay those. We understand. But year over year, there's an improvement coming. So, Joe, we think, the yields have dropped a little bit because we think inflation is going to be better than people think. And our kind of contrarian take, if you will, market's pricing at about one cut right now. I know some really smart economists are saying maybe hikes this year. We're saying no. We think 2 to 3 cuts this year is probably what's going to be there. We're still overweight equities. Just about a month ago on the Carson team, we actually added some treasuries for the first time in 2 years. We haven't wanted to touch treasuries, don't get me wrong. But we think, again, the market's mispricing lower yields and overall more cuts. But the reality is the economy's still solid. Go ahead. Sorry.
Very, very quickly, they're wrapping us. And I just want to have one more question from you. CPE, if it's hotter than expected today, what's the market's reaction today?
Won't like it, I guess, short answer. But don't forget this, Friday's been very, very weak this year as nobody wants to hold over the weekend. So let's see. But we kind of know the inputs to the PCE already. Should come in at 0.3. If it doesn't, that'll surprise a lot of people. But I think we'll get a pretty positive number. But be aware, Friday's been very weak. We need to see some strength on Fridays before we kind of get out of this choppy malaise that we've been seeing. And I think it'll happen soon enough. Good February.
Sorry. Sorry. I thought I was Dude, we haven't done this mistake in like a couple of weeks, right? Like, I know it's a rookie mistake. I get it. I understand. I've done this show God knows how many times. That is definitely a rookie mistake. But dude, you would think like you don't make that mistake anymore when like, you know, people show up and it's like, no, you make that same mistake. I remember, I told you guys this story a while ago, but I remember watching Meet Kevin 3 years ago. This man was on mute for 11 minutes. It was like, you talk about someone going through the most complex financial analysis they're doing. They're moving their hands back and forth. They're confident. They're talking to the camera. They're thinking they're spitting hot fire. 11 minutes, bro, of not realizing like no one can hear a word you're saying. And I that's etched in my memory because I remember seeing that and I was like, damn, this has to be embarrassing. Like, like you're like a mime, like you're just talking and no one can hear you. But anyway, what I was saying, what the hell was I even saying? I was saying something. I don't even remember. Oh, I was saying PCE came in good, right? Because he said PCE has to come in good. PCE came in better than expected, so, or it came in line with expectations. So that's all I said. Nothing else. See, the good thing is last time we did this, it was over. But then for the next couple of days, you kept saying muted, even though I wasn't muted. And then you guys really fucked with my head. So now that this happened again, I have to be very careful because I know some comments are going to happen randomly. It's going to say muted. And I'm going to think I'm muted and I'm not muted. But I know you guys now. Now this jogged your memory of that trick, you're going to be using that trick more often. And that's not a good trick. See, why is he still muted? I'm not muted. See, I know this. This is going to be ridiculous. Like, this is going to be so bad. We wouldn't treat you like that on your birthday. Thank you. Let's assume every day is my birthday then. We don't do that. All right. I think that's it, bro. I mean, this is the market. There's nothing else crazy happening right now. This is it. Like, market's going a little green. I don't really trust it, to be honest. I think on the market close, we'll see if this thing can hold up. But yeah, that's it, guys. This is a crappy week. I hope everyone's not feeling too bad. Let me ask this question. Is everyone's like, are people's emotions legit? Like, how have you guys been emotionally handled? Let's end up the market open with this. How have you been emotionally handling this week? Like, has it actually been a strain on your like day-to-day life, seeing your portfolio every single day? Has it been one of those things where you're like, you know, you don't even want to talk to your kids or something because of how bad it is? Or is it one of those things where you're like, all right, it is what it is. Like, markets are down, markets go up, markets go down. It is what it is. I'll tell you, for my dad, he's every day. He's like, well, I'm down another $5,000. I was like, yeah, you should start buying. You know, you should keep buying. So my dad is 35 shares of Tesla. He bought it at 235. When Tesla got to 400, I told him to sell. Why did I tell him to sell? I said, Dad, it's 35 freaking shares. You're up $8,000. Tesla's at 400. It's a lot of momentum. Let's buy some Robinhood. You have a real position in Robinhood. Let's add to that position. Robinhood at the time was 30. His average was like 21. I was like, let's load up more hood. That makes more sense than having 35 shares in Tesla. He said, nope, I'm not selling. Yesterday, he comes home. He's like, dude, I quit you. He's like, why the fuck is Elon still CEO? Why don't they replace him? He's not even doing any work. And I started dying, bro. I started laughing. I was like, because my dad's still on Facebook, bro. And he sees all these headlines. And sometimes he sees some crazy. I'm like, Dad, you cannot believe these headlines that you see. But the one headline that he was seeing, which was accurate, which is that Elon is spending more time with Trump than at Tesla. And he legit was like, why is he the CEO? Like, What is he doing? And I'm like, and I don't even know how to explain to him, Dad, the only reason Tesla is because of Elon, right? Like he doesn't factor that. He doesn't care. He just sees his stock go from 400 to 280. His average is at 230. All of his gains wiped out. And, you know, I didn't want to say I told you so, but at 400 with 35 shares, dude, I was like, this just like, we should consolidate into higher conviction. We shouldn't just have 35 shares in Tesla. But he kept it. And now he's pissed off that he kept it. He was like, now if I sell, I'm the biggest idiot ever. I was like, no, you could still sell. You'll make a couple $1,000s. We could still move the money. He's like, nope, now if I sell, I'm going to feel like an idiot. I was like, welcome to the markets. Welcome to the freaking markets. Amit, you're experiencing the main role of a financial advisor, coaching, reassuring someone to talk to, giving investment advice is not the job. It's being on call to manage people's emotions. That is actually 1000% correct. It was funny. I was actually speaking to someone who works in the field a couple days ago, and he said the exact same thing. It's not really about the advice. Like the advice is not going to change whether it's a market that's up or a market that's down. Because if you have a strategy, you're going to stick to that strategy. It's about counseling people and reminding them like that they're not going to die because NVIDIA is down 9%. And that's basically what I have to do with my dad. With my mom, she doesn't care, bro. She doesn't care. Even my sister, she cared for a little bit. Now she's like, she doesn't care anymore. But my dad, every day, dude, he's like, what's going on, bro? I'm like, this is the markets. It is what it is. It is what it is. Let me see some of your comments. Okay, so some people were saying here that I've been feeling a little stressed, but I'm better today. Alan said I'm sleeping in a cardboard box tonight. Gil says no problem sleeping at night. Melody says painful, then numb, then lesson learned. That's usually what happens, right? It's painful, then you get desensitized to it. Victor says, I have no funds yet, so for the long port, I'm just watching it drop. That's fair. Not really buying the dip right here. Ricardo says it's all part of life. Discord says, I feel nothing anymore. I'm numb. All right, so at least all of us, if anything, this last 2-week volatile part of the market got us to be more desensitized to some of the pain that is here. And for those that haven't been desensitized to volatility, I mean, like this is like if this is the first time you're getting a little bit of numbness to numbers going up and down, then I think I really do think it's a worthwhile experience. I mean, I remember in 2020 when I was down 10 grand on that stupid biotech stock, I thought that was going to change the world. It hurt in the moment, dude. It really hurt. It hurt more than a moment. It was at least a couple months where I was like really upset. Like $10,000 back in 2020 was like, I would say that was like half my net worth, right? That was a lot of money that was gone. And then you just realize like, okay, what am I going to do? The stock's not going to go up. So either I move on with my life and I figure out how to make more money and I find a better investment, or I sulk about this, right? Now, granted, that stock was never going to go up. That was like a shit stock, right? But if you're down 20% on Palantir or Robinhood or Rklb or NVIDIA, it's like these are really amazing companies. These are not companies where you throw in the towel. These are companies where you say, all right, let's see if I can double down and get more. And it really helps when it's a good company. When it's a crappy company, it doesn't. And if you're in a crappy company, this is a lesson. Like I had a lesson a couple of years ago to not be in crappy companies. And I'm not perfect at it. I'm probably going to invest in more crappy companies over the lifetime as I make mistakes. But if you're in something that's absolute garbage and you know it's garbage, and the only thing that's telling you it's not garbage is because you think they're going to solve cancer, which that's how you know, like if that's your thesis, it's probably not the best public company to invest in, then yeah, it's a lesson of just like during tough times, those stocks don't hold up. And it's something to learn going over the long term. Amit, do you still have the stock? I do not. I do not have the stock. I took a 12 grand loss on it late 2023. So yeah, I actually held it for 3 years, dude, thinking it would come back. And it's like, dude, after I sold it, I think they did 2 reverse splits after I sold it. So it's like it just got so bad, bro. So completely bad. But it is what it is. What stock was it? PPBT, Purple Biotech. That was the name of it. PPBT. Some of you guys who've been following me for a while, you guys know about this stock. They have a chemical called NT219. The reason I know this shit is because I really went deep. I became a fucking biomedical engineer, biochemist while I was researching this shit. I have no idea. Dude, I don't even know how I got a C in chemistry in high school. And my dumb ass was like, yeah, biomolecular engineering. I can clearly do the due diligence and allocate capital towards a company in this, like that was my mentality 5 years ago. But they have this chemical called NT219, and you know, there's a part of me that still feels that chemical is going to be a very important chemical in regards to solving cancer. I believe it's, what's the type of cancer? They're in the oncology field. Oncology. That's the field they're in. And so you guys can do some research on it if you're actually curious. It's a startup that has a really promising chemical, but it's not a freaking public company. It's not supposed to be a public company, you know? And so it's like, maybe it does end up solving diseases in the future, but shareholders are not going to stick around waiting for that. You know? Oncology just means a field in cancer. See, this is the... See, this is how dumb dude, I thought it was like a type of cancer. This is how bad it is, bro. So it's cancer. I don't know what type of cancer, but it's the oncology field, which is the cancer field. See, this is what I shouldn't be investing in it. Like, I did not know the basic terms of this industry. It was so bad, bro. It's just funny when you look back at it and you realize how stupid you were. But you also learn from it, right? You take those lessons to heart. You don't want to lose 10,000, 20,000 bucks again. So you don't invest in shit that's stupid. Like, I think the problem with some of the retail investor bases, like, people do stupid stuff and then they keep doing stupid stuff. It's like, well, I was stupid there, but I'm gonna be less stupid here, and this time it's gonna work. It's like, no, it's not. Like, it's probably not. And as long as people aren't doing that, which I think the far majority of people aren't, then you're able to withstand some of this volatility. Eric, thank you for the $50 super chat. I really appreciate that, brother. This is how upset I am. LOL. Let's effing go. Thank you, Eric, for the super chat. Thank you for being here. And happy you are dealing with this volatility in a much better way. Is Trump speaking? Okay, hold on. Is Trump saying something? Hold on. Is he about to tank the markets? Dude, this is the next 4 years. Every time Trump's speaking, is he about to tank the markets? Oh, no, he's about to. He's about to speak. Okay, I think we stay live, guys, to watch that. I mean, that's kind of... Yeah, that's going to happen pretty soon. I think we stay live, right? We stay live. My meeting, actually, I said I had to go to 11. I just got an email. It got extended to 12:30, so I actually can stay live. And we see what the heck he says and if this turns around. Yes, let's watch it. Okay. Okay, cool. All right, so when it goes live, we'll watch it. Probably in like 4 or 5 minutes, I think it'll be live, and then we'll see what he has to say. All right. In the meantime, so let me show you guys this podcast that I'm publishing today. It will be published as soon as I leave stream. So as soon as I leave, you guys will be able to watch it. So this is what it is right here. I still don't have a thumbnail up for this. So I need to make a thumbnail. I need to make a title as well. So I don't have a name for the podcast. Don't have a name for the show. Like, we're doing everything kind of last minute here, but I need to make a name for this and I need to make a title, and then I'll publish it live once I leave. So you guys can watch it once I leave. And then we'll keep going from there. Yeah, let me link the channel in chat. Let's do that here. And then on Twitter, it'll be live at the same time as well. So people can watch it there. Figured it out. That's a good one. That's a good one. That's not bad. Oh, Vlad just tweeted. We got a Vlad tweet. Vlad is unfazed by this volatility, though. Look at that. Good morning to everyone who builds. Look at that. Vlad doesn't care, bro. Vlad's like, we're building. We are building. Trump is not live yet. He is about to be with Zelensky. So Zelensky's in the White House with Trump right now. So it's going to be him and Zelensky being live. Yeah, basically Vlad said, buy the effing dip. That's that's how you can interpret good morning to anyone who builds. Okay, hold on. Where's the link to the channel? Let me put it here. Oh boy, let me save this. I have to come up with... All right, so when Trump's speaking, I'm going to come up with a name and a thumbnail for this because I haven't done that yet. So I need to do that. And then we'll publish it. All right, there's the channel there. Maybe we'll get some peace talks about comments that won't be infuriating to our allies. Yeah, I mean, this is going to be an interesting one, dude. This is going to be really interesting to see what they say. If Trump doubles down on tariffs here, we could get some more pain. But if Trump also talks about like legit peace is on the way when it comes to this Russia-Ukraine situation, that also could be very, very beneficial. On top of the podcast channel, let me link this channel as well. For those that want to get clips of the market open, we do have a clips channel right here. So If you want to get bite-sized clips from the market open, market close to about, call it 10 to 15 minutes, you can subscribe to that as well. That one's going to be posting every single day. So that one, if you don't want to be annoyed with a ton of videos in your feed, then don't subscribe to it. But if you're okay with that, then you can subscribe to that one. The podcast channel, maybe a podcast every month. So that's going to be, if you subscribe to it, very rarely will there be an upload, but hopefully it'll be quality over quantity when it comes to that. This is the podcast channel right here. All right, equities are okay. They're holding on. NVIDIA's up, Square is up, Palantir's up, Robinhood's up, Tesla's up. Tesla's up 3.4%. They are holding on for now. Trump talking will definitely have an impact. He is not live yet, but he likely will be soon. The daily summary, we're likely starting next week on Monday. So on Monday on this channel, we will be doing sort of that daily recap, 15 to 20 minutes that I told you guys about. We're going to see if it works, if I like it, if you guys like it. If not, we'll cancel it, but we'll start that next Monday. Do we have a date for Options 102? Yes, most likely that is happening next Saturday. What's next Saturday? Next Saturday is the 7th. Yeah, next Saturday, the 7th. So, or sorry, the 8th. I have to confirm with Jason. We already have the presentation ready, but next Saturday, the 8th, should be Options 201. And we already did 101, which you guys liked, but we'll do 201 with Jason most likely by next week. Dude, if he announced tariffs on Ukraine, like, we just need this to be a good freaking normal press conference. Then we'll see it. Okay, so until Trump goes live, do we want to watch Karp on the new interview with Barry Weiss? I thought that was a decent interview. We can watch like probably 10, 15 minutes of it until Karp goes live. Or not Karp, until Trump goes live. So let me know in the chat. We can wait there. And then we'll switch to Trump. JNMC, thank you for the super chat. Is Alphabet the most attractive Mag 7 stock right now? I think Alphabet and NVIDIA are up there. If I had to pick between two, yes, it would be Alphabet and NVIDIA. I mean, I think they're just cheap compared to the market expectations of growth. I think the market is worried about a lot of structural problems with Google that I don't think are that structural. And that's why we're getting the discount in regards to search. And NVIDIA, I think the market's just afraid about cyclicality. But yes, I do think those are some of the more attractive Mag 7. Yes. Okay, cool. All right, so we'll listen to about 10 minutes of Karp. Trump will probably be on by then. And we'll move on. I'll pause occasionally for some market updates as I'm seeing them. There's nothing that crazy going on right now. This Trump thing is going to be the big thing for the markets. But we'll take a listen to this and then we'll keep going from there.
At least that's what I think it was called. I do not speak or write German. He wrote it in German. He's fluent in many languages. Since 2003, Alex has also been the CEO of Palantir, a company that I find very hard to describe in a single sentence, but I'm going to try. Palantir is a software and data analytics company that does defense and intelligence work. If that sounds a little too neutered for you, think of it as a company that stops terror attacks around the world while also helping make sports cars go faster and pharmaceutical companies build better drugs. We're here today, not just because of Palantir, although we'll talk a lot about it, but because Alex has just co-written an important new book called The Technological Republic, which just debuted at #1 on the New York Times bestseller list. The book offers a vision of how Silicon Valley lost its way and how the future of America and the West hinges on its finding its way back and fast.
Thank you.
Jewish father.
Well, I think the primary thing in my family, so my family, my mother, father, but also extended family are, you could imagine like something like the physics department at Princeton meets an art colony. So my mom was a professional artist, and my dad is a pediatrician for underserved communities. But the larger family is kind of a caricature of a very talented, very high IQ. And then what is super interesting was we were pretty, I mean, in retrospect, we didn't have a lot of money, but we were very focused on intellectual and historical rigor to the point of almost I wanted to vomit all the time. And I was interested in some of this, but it was like super overkill.
Give me an example of like dinner table conversation.
Well, first of all, my mom has she's 85 now, but she has an encyclopedic knowledge of almost any irrelevant fact you could ever want to know. So like, it might be like, people used to call and they're like, oh, we're having a tour guide at Bryn Mawr. Nobody knows who the architect was of this building. But we knew one person would know, and my mom, of course, would know, and it'd be like a 40-minute lecture. And then there probably would be some discussion that was kind of political about, they of course, I remember vividly telling my parents, but Reagan seems like such a nice person. They're like, you're wrong. So a lot of discussions about ethics, human rights, literature, to some extent math. My dad's very mathematical. It was exceedingly intellectual, very Jewish. And my mom became Jewish, but it wasn't really, it's just like everyone there was. And then
so high IQ and intellectual, but you were dyslexic forever.
Yeah, no. I'm like, I was in the closet. It's funny. I should be in the closet about my social life and when I was younger and all sorts of other things, but I never was. But I was in the closet about being dyslexic until 7-8 years ago. And then I just felt tired of being in the closet about it. I was very, very good at certain things.
Okay, so Trump is not live, but let's get a little bit of a preview of what he's about to talk about. But he is not officially live yet.
To be determined, as well as whether or not there'll be a specific guarantee for security and military aid as part of this deal, or whether that will be implicit. The sort of Damocles here that the Trump administration has over the Ukrainian president is that the United States has been providing for Ukrainian military defense since the beginning of the war. Without that, the Ukrainians likely could not continue in the fight. So the Ukrainians are in a position here where they kind of have to sign whatever it is that the president President Trump, that is, puts in front of them. We'll wait and see whether that includes an explicit guarantee or whether the security piece of this is a separate understanding between the two gentlemen. And then obviously the body language between these two men will be fascinating to watch. President Trump earlier called Volodymyr Zelensky a dictator. Yesterday, he was asked about that question, and he said, did I say that? Almost in a joking way. So some real tensions here in the relationship between the United States and Ukraine as we get set for this meeting, guys.
I was just going to ask if the tone has changed after President Trump's meetings this week with Keir Starmer of the UK, with Emmanuel Macron of France. Also, they've been obviously big supporters of Ukraine, and I'm sure that was top of mind and top of discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I think the relationship hit a real inflection point between Trump and Zelensky when Zelensky turned down this mineral deal when Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent went to Ukraine to present it the first time around. And Zelensky objected to the United States holding talks about the future of Ukraine without the Ukraine participating in those talks. Then you saw the angry social media posts from President Trump calling Zelensky a dictator. But then this week, you've seen a little bit different language from President Trump. I was noting yesterday in the press conference with Keir Starmer, as you mentioned, President Trump went out of his way to praise the bravery of Ukrainian troops, how aggressively they have fought, how much they have been willing to suffer in order to defend their country. The president clearly has an admiration for that. And he went out of his way to signal that yesterday. So maybe a bit of a warming here, especially now that the Ukrainians have signaled that they'll sign on to this deal. And again, we're still waiting to see what the terms are of this deal and how many billions of dollars are impacted.
Okay, Eamon, thank you. We'll come back to you for
Okay, did we get Atlanta Fed GDP now? Did we get that? Let me see if we got that. I didn't know we were getting that data today. If we did, that could also be, yeah, wow. Okay, we just got that news, folks. Here we go.
Atlanta Fed is now projecting Q1 GDP will be negative 1.5%. What? Last week it was plus 2.3%. 4 weeks ago it was 3.9%. That would be a contraction for the first time since 2022. Since Q3 2022. If you're seeing any red right now in the market, this I think is the reason for why. Again, it's a prediction. It doesn't mean it has to come true, but it is a prediction of contraction for Q1. Wow. Huh. I'm very curious. I want to see some research on both sides on how people are thinking of this number. Again, Atlanta Fed is not the sole source on GDP estimates, but they're one of the main sources. If they're projecting negative 1.5%, I don't know how earnings are going to be able to match expectations in Q1. Now, that's a little bit of a mismatch towards some of the guidance we got from companies on how they're going to perform in Q1. Markets are actually holding up pretty well. I mean, the S&P is down a little bit, but it's still green for the day. It's not like this is news that's completely tanking it. But that is a bit concerning. That is definitely a piece of news, whereas like, yeah, that I could see that as a bearish piece of news. Now, granted, the market might have known about this already. They might have priced that in already, which is why we're not seeing as aggressive as a sell-off right here. Because theoretically, if we're going to contract in Q1, markets would be more volatile towards that. Now, here's another, unfortunately, good piece of news with bad piece of news. If we contract by 1.5%, inflation is coming down. Inflation is coming down. And one of the reasons the market might be holding up right now is that, hey, wait a second. If we need rate cuts and we need inflation to come down to get rate cuts, and we need the housing market to be stimulated because of those rate cuts coming down, or because of the 10-year coming down to create mortgage rates to come down to get us those rate cuts, we need inflation to come down. One of the ways to get inflation to come down is to get the economy to stop growing. And if we grow negative, which means we don't grow, I don't know if inflation collapses, but it definitely takes inflation down, which could be the bright line here, or the silver line. But in general, a contraction is not something I thought we were going to get. But it seemed like we're getting right now. Now, granted, again, I think some part of the market knew this already, because if this was like a catastrophic bear case, we would see markets tanking. We're not seeing that. I mean, if anything, we're seeing markets bouncing from the 11.15 low that we just had. So it would be a good reason for lowering rates. That is correct. That doesn't mean it's necessarily a recession, but it does mean that we do have a little bit of weakness in the broader economy. Let me see some other sources that are coming out on this news with. But yeah, that created a little bit of a piece of volatility that we saw just now. Vlad just tweeted something as well. What the heck is Vlad tweeting? He says, "I've been cooking." What is this? What the hell is this? Is this like a ancient pyramid or something? That's definitely like an AI picture. I've been cooking. The hell is he cooking, bro? You can't say this when GDP is going to be seen as negative, bro. What is going on? What is he saying? I've been cooking. What the hell is this? Does anyone have any theory on this picture? I've been cooking. All right, well, there you go. GDP looks like Atlanta Fed thinks it can be negative for Q1. I'm going to try to get a lot more sources by market close to kind of see the interpretation of this data, but that's what we're seeing right now. Let's get back to Karp, and then we'll have Trump on probably in the next 5 to 10 minutes.
And dyslexic at things. There are many different definitions of dyslexia. My current fixation on is having an attenuated relationship to broader taxonomies. So, and then I was lucky to be in an environment where they were like, "Hey, there's something wrong here," and then I got help, and then I ended up doing very well in lots of things. But yeah, I have a very different structure than the rest of my family. They're born to be in a lab or in a art colony, and I did very well in academia, but I am actually a builder. And that attenuation to larger structures means the disadvantage is that when you're reading and writing, you are bringing extra energy to the game that you wouldn't have to bring if you were not dyslexic. The advantage I have, if you want to make it, I usually just explain it as the attenuation allows you to be creative. But since we're in an academic audience, I would say there's a combination, there's a concept of hermeneutics, which is just a fancy way of saying what overlay do you put on the thing that you're interacting with, this in this case a text. And so the classic, and there are lots of discussions which you may be reading, but it's a pretty important part of Germanic intellectual tradition, the hermeneutic tradition. And you can think of dyslexia as forced hermeneutic, because I have to engage with the text with an interpretive layer that allows me to actually understand and process the text in the way that you don't. But then the massive advantage of this is the text actually becomes you. It's like the famous Hegelian master-slave dialectic, which I think you should read if you haven't, but it's basically the basic thing is the slave becomes the master becomes the slave. And you see this in businesses all the time. One of the things I think, like typically in a business, people hire staff instead of equals. And they like that because the staff says yes all the time. But then the person in charge gets addicted to the person saying yes all the time. In fact, the people that your staff becomes your master. And you see this, but it's much, much harder to create that dynamic if you're dyslexic, because in fact, as much as I would like to interact one-to-one with the underlying text, I can't, or the underlying business, or the underlying business plan, or the way you're supposed to build a software company, or the way you're supposed to build a relationship. And that this is, but yeah, I was the odd duckling in my family, although my dad is actually kind of slightly dyslexic and my uncle is slightly dyslexic, but not as pronounced. Like I got the full-on dosage.
But you have the full-on dosage of having a really hard time reading and writing. Yet you go to college, then you go to Stanford Law School, then you go and get a PhD at Goethe University, which is famous, of course, for the Frankfurt School, a group of Marxist intellectuals, sort of.
Yeah, I mean,
fair way of describing them.
The origin of I mean, again, this I'm doing the book behind the book here. So since we're
going to get to the book in a second.
No, we don't have to get the book.
No, I've wanted to ask you, what do you respect most about Marxism?
Well, the Frankfurt School isn't fake. It's not actually Marxist. It's the Frankfurt School. I mean, there's a definitional question of who started it, but generally people would say Horkheimer, Adorno. But a lot of people would include Benjamin from others, and so it's like any school. It's actually elliptical. The modern version of it is actually neo-Kantian and pro-American. I mean, as much as you're allowed to be as a German intellectual. And so I was particularly interested in the second phase of the Frankfurt School. So and actually Habermas, and then a very famous thinker, Luhmann, who I don't know how much I should go detail you want, but you're at a university. So
we don't need to get deep into.
Okay, so the I was super interested.
We want to get to killing terrorists.
Great, I'm happy to talk about that, and I'm proud of that. And you should, having pride in occasionally using violence is one of the main things that our universities have screwed up. It is in the service of our nation and with great thought and applying the ethics of war, which America does. Sometimes you have to kill the other side. It's a fact, and it's not always a bad thing.
But I think,
but on the Frankfurter School side, so it really was. First of all, Benjamin was actually a poet, and I don't think he was in any way. So and Horkheimer and Adorno were kind of actually closer to Heideggerian. So it really, like, their whole idea of a ratcheting bureaucracy taking over our life might be familiar to us. It's not, it's like, so and then the later people, especially Luhmann is the most important figure no one reads in German thought. And Luhmann was built on Parsons, and Parsons was this incredibly important thinker that got banned because he wasn't willing to be left-wing, basically. And the Parsonian way of looking at the universe was taken over by Germans and is absolutely essential for any work you do in Germany. Luckily, because of Harvard, which Harvard was, that I knew a lot about Parsons. And so that was why I was a super hit in Germany because I was a technical expert in something very important that no one had ever understood. But by the way, this is a lesson for life. If you're a technical expert in something that is important to somebody, the two people in the world who are most important in the world, and probably Luhmann's no longer alive, but if they were, would be, had a fixation on this one thinker that no one was reading because it wasn't politically left enough. Lo and behold, I was the only person they could talk to that knew more about that than they did, which is actually hard with Habermas and with Luhmann, because they just like these. Another lesson from academia that I would say, like, Germany's got a lot of problems, but when I was there, I dealt with the best of the best of the best of the best, and that taught me I was good enough to be a professor at Columbia in a tenure, but I was not going to be them. And by the way,
wait, pause. Why? You were good enough, but you weren't going to be them. You didn't want to be them?
Well, first of all, I didn't. That's the thing. Couldn't be them because of the dyslexia. Honestly, like, it was like, to be Luhmann, you have to write a book every 3 months, and a world-class book. And he had read everything, and the attenuation with the language. It wasn't just a German thing, but I was writing in German, and that was going to create huge problems. And also, I discovered in talking to these people, they're not builders. I mean, I wouldn't have been able to explain this way, but I figured out pretty quickly, they're better at reading and writing, and also, but I'm better at building. And then the thing I thought vividly that I think has turned out to be completely true is, and again, this goes back to point one, the building of the idea is more important than the academic version of the idea. And it's really important to build and win. And you could have long discussions about how the world should be structured with Luhmann, Habermas, or Gadamer, if you could meet any of these incredible thinkers. But I thought somewhat arrogantly, I had a rare ability to build. God knows why I thought it. There was no evidence. But I did think that, and I thought, screw this. I can build the fucking idea.
But how did you realize that in yourself? Like, even...
By the way, Thao, thank you for the 20 gifted. Appreciate you, brother. Thank you for those 20 gifted, and 20 of you guys just got a gifted membership. So thank you for that, and thank you for being here. Trump is not live yet. I think Zelensky just walked into the White House, so they are greeting each other right now, and they're going to give remarks in a bit, but he is not officially live yet.
When I prepared that question, I was not expecting you to go from Adorno to Benjamin to... Your mind clearly is so interested in those ideas even still now. Given that you had proclivities toward that, how did you realize I can go and run one of the most valuable and mysterious defense companies in the world? How do you go from that to where you are?
We're also crushing it in commercial and the most successful. I just want to say,
he's so modest too.
I do get accused, but one of my heroes is Heinrich Heine, and Heinrich Heine was an incredible poet. There's no reason to learn German, but except for to read Goethe and Heine. And Goethe was essentially like Shakespeare, but he wrote in modern German. So we struggle when we read Shakespeare because it's like being dyslexic. You have to translate it. You don't have the emotional vibe that you would have if it was modern English. Goethe, it's modern English, modern German, but it's Shakespeare. And so valuable. Like, I would highly recommend everyone here read Dr. Faustus, and once a year. Like, it's the most therapeutic, most insightful piece of literature. But in any case, my other hero was Heinrich Heine, who was a German Jewish poet, was so prominent in German culture that when the Nazis couldn't really get rid of him, and so there were all these things, all these pieces of poetry that they then turned into being anonymous, and he wasn't that modest. So whenever I get accused of being immodest, I think, well, we all have our classic liberal, by the way. Heinrich Heine was like essentially what you could call a classic, a modern American liberal. But for the academic version of this is having a deep enough understanding of an academic subject, whatever it is. And I don't actually think it matters as much it sharpens your mind to understand what a plausible argument is. So, like, in business, or there are many different ways of doing business, by the way, and you'll find the king reflects the court, and they're like some business leaders here I really admire and look up to. I would never know how to run a business the way they do. And we look like a freak show to any normal business person on the inside, and we kind of are, and it works. But there is a thing of like, what is the rigor at which the argument is true? So one of the things you can think about and Wittgenstein, Wittgenstein wrote his first piece of work and sent.
So we're getting a little bit of volatility across the markets. Things are not officially red yet, but they are definitely selling off. Very similar to playbook to yesterday. Yesterday we were green for a decent chunk of the day, and then really around this 11:30, 12 p.m. timeframe, things started turning. Again, that Atlanta Fed GDP estimate went negative. Now, one of the reasons it might be going negative is because of how they're factoring in imports. So I don't think the market's tanking on that news yet. Because I think there's a little bit more nuance to that news about why they're projecting Q1 being negative. It might be because people loaded up on goods and services in Q4 because they were anticipating tariffs. So that could be a reason. But nonetheless, we are seeing a bit of a turn right here. I'll let you guys know if the S&P officially goes red, but right now it's still up about 0.25% for the day. Trump did not start talking yet. I think probably in the next 15 minutes he's going to be talking, but all the live streams are set up. Everyone's waiting on the news channels. So I think he will be live pretty soon.
To his advisor said, I'm not, the amazing thing about this is there's nothing in this work that's wrong. So you can think about that. It took Wittgenstein to write a paper where nothing is wrong. And one of the things academia can help, of course, the disaster we have in modern academia is essentially you're learning a religion. But if you were learning academia, the rigor at which an argument or a concept could theoretically be true is a real rigor. Not even that you're right, but that you're not wrong. Mm-hmm. And I think, like, obviously there's a translation function when most people at Palantir are not particularly interested in having a lecture on Heidegger when they ask me how we should, like for my feedback, which honestly they don't always ask for. And often don't listen to. Like, we have Palantirians here; they'll attest to that. We do not have a culture where people follow my orders inherently, but I can mostly convince them. But the rigor of, is this plausibly true, is a rigor that I got at home because the other thing is like, because also interacting and negotiating with two highly intelligent, unusual and difficult people, my parents, and trying to get my way is really hard and builds up a lot of skills and this is why I think partner selection, by the way, is crazy important, because you want children
in business or romance or both,
in everything, because you need like the rigor of how do you convincing my parents of something, even if I was wrong and they were right, is very hard. So that sets a standard. But then that standard is high, and it's just like convincing a world-class professor who's not politically biased, so the kind of people you have roaming around here, of something is actually hard. And it's that rigor that actually sets the standard for doing important things in any part of life. And here, where I completely agree with my parents, and it sounds like, I have this thing where I'm interested in things that are true but not plausible. So this is a true but not plausible statement. I really believe doing something important is crucially important for fulfillment. So that part's true and plausible. And I don't believe that the money part of it is more valuable. You just need enough money so you don't have to think about money. And if you stay off meth and you live below your means, you'll have enough money for that probably. And so, but then it's like, how do I do something important with my life? And the rigor of what it means to be plausibly right, certainly not wrong, is a skill that will save your life in your career and in your personal life over and over and over again.
That was an unintentional segue to your book, because what the book is about, I think the premise of the book is about how Silicon Valley is full of some of the brightest, cleverest minds in the world. And they are focused inordinately on building things to make our lives slightly more luxurious and better, on apps and social and things that will be forgotten. And they're unmoored from a broader national project. Tell us a little bit more about that thesis? And more to the point, how that happened. How did if the pretext of the book is Silicon Valley lost its way, and you could look at something like the Manhattan Project, the marriage there between tech and government as the high watermark. And then we'll talk about Doge and maybe how Doge is trying to remarry those two things. But how did Silicon Valley lose its way and become unmoored from a sense of having a sense of purpose beyond really the market and beyond these little companies? How did it become unmoored from a sense of a broader commitment to America and the West?
Well, there's a lot to that question, and I think I don't know exactly where to begin, but
start with what it should look like.
Well, I think, and again, this is where I'm super into academia still. The classic positivist way to look at the world is that, you'll have something like the value of an object will be measured by the market, and the value of the object will have its value will correspond. It'll be something called Pareto optimality, which I'm sure you guys spend time thinking about here.
Have you guys heard of that?
Yeah, they love that. This is a conservative school. But it's basic.
Okay, we got some news from the terminal right here. Trump, says we have something that is very fair. The deal with Ukraine is a big commitment from the United States. I spoke to Putin, had good discussions. We've started the confines of a deal. He is not live yet, but this is what we have journalists putting out on the Bloomberg terminal in regards to what he's saying. So I'm assuming very soon he will be live and we'll hear him say this with Zelensky. But I mean, that news seems relatively bullish. S&P is rebounding off that headline. We were at 0.25. Now we're at 0.5. Even with that whole GDP going negative, Atlanta Fed reading that we got 10 minutes ago, that Trump headline kind of did a pseudo reverse on some of these stocks. And the S&P is now up about 0.5% here right now. I guess when he's live with Zelensky, we'll get a better understanding of what the deal looks like.
Basically, the market is fair. And I believe that, and there's an AI riff on this, but I think that true talent, management of talent. So let me do the management of talent for you. How do you avoid becoming a sophist, successful person who's super unhappy? Which should be like, let's assume everyone here can be successful. I think you want to do endeavors that are larger than yourself, that are more meaningful than yourself, and where that endeavor probably can't be fully monetized. And some people have that in their personal life. Some people have that in their professional life. I'm pretty skeptical. This is where of the idea that the market is rational and that the market will price things in terms of their true value. And so it was better for our society, and ergo better for everyone in the society, to have our most technical people building things that were both good for government and good for society. But it's much more difficult, and it's much more dangerous to build them. And then again, I think what's in the book that I think our educational institutions have really done us a disservice. One of the reasons I wanted to come here was, and what is that disservice? Well, the primary disservice was somehow teaching people that it's better to believe in nothing than into something, whatever that something is. Like, what you're really learning at an elite school is the world is already understandable, and you should just follow this preordained arc. And that preordained arc has a set of steps where you say you believe in something, but actually you believe in your self-advancement. And then I think what happened in Silicon Valley, by the way, there's been, again, testament to America, a huge shift. I think, it's like, and that's partly because the ideas changed, but quite frankly, somewhat ill-modestly, it's because Palantir did so well, and now other companies are doing very well, and people see, well, I can do something that has a higher purpose and make money. And that, again, I'm not arguing for a non-free enterprise, because if you couldn't make money building Palantir or other defense tech startups, the idea would be an idea they study in some faculty by people who can't get a job. And but I think we went way too far on this. We are going to build things in the easiest way possible, and those things are at the margin going to be detrimental for our society. But the other way academia really screwed us was I think it's very hard to build things if you don't have a hierarchical notion of what's good and bad. Like, why would you build something for the US and our nation if all nations are equal, or our nation is worse than other nations? Why would you take the risk and the effort to build something hard and difficult you might fail at that would advance our defense if you're defending if our culture and the people we're defending ourselves against are as good, as rational, as moral, as likely to behave rationally, as willing to protect the rights of various groups that have received discrimination? Why would you do that? And the obvious answer is you would only do that if you're a zealot or insane, and that's why the reaction to us in the beginning was so negative, because we were calling into question the very hierarchy of norms, meaning non-hierarchy of norms, that powered the decisions people were making. And then you could ask, getting to these, why have we had such a corrosion of legitimacy into one of the things I like to ask people who in private rooms who are defending things I don't think are defensible, and I ask these people, okay, I'm a kind of reformed, old school liberal progressive who's very unhappy and now had to leave the Democratic Party and whatever. But I asked them in private, name an institution that's run by the things you believe in that actually works. Any institution where works is less is put into the system that goes out. And the answer always is basically, I don't accept your frame, which is, by the way, one of the most disingenuous, the number of times because I love to have these fights kind of in private rooms where people can be more honest. I like that. And I try and run into very famous people. And I ask them about all sorts of things, how can you possibly accept, my favorite rant obviously is, you built a party or an institution, universities, other universities. The primary focus of universities in the last 20 years has been anti-discrimination. Good. I'm not in favor of non-meritocratic discrimination, nor is anyone I've ever met, in favor of discrimination. Okay, well, if you're so not in favor of discrimination, how can you accept discrimination against a people that has the longest history of discrimination in the history of humanity? And the answer is, I don't accept your frame. If you're okay, well, how can you possibly tacitly defend Hamas? I don't accept your frame. How can you explain that, I quoted, judge them by the fruits they bear. How can you explain your ideology where there's not a single institution that you can say in private, no one's putting you on the spot in public, that you believe is actually working by the very basic standard that you put in 2 units out, you get 2.5. You put in 2 units, you get out more than 2 units. And the answer is, I don't accept your frame. And now, what's fascinating to me and is in the book is, in most cases, it's because they're doing this thing that you will encounter everywhere in your life, and something that academia, and I think actually my book can help protect against, which is they are actually a product of some ideology. They become a product of some ideology that presupposes a universalistic, undiscussable presupposition behind which there's a grift. And that presupposition that they will not allow, that it becomes religious in the sense that you cannot problematize it in academic language, and not academic language would be discuss it, creates a system where the dysfunction of the institution does not matter, because the dysfunction cannot be discussed outside the frame which they defined, which cannot be called into question. And the whole institution is sinking, and you still can't mention it. And this is like, and this is, I think, what classic education prevents. It prevents you from becoming the product.
One thing that you've talked about a lot is this idea of, for lack of a better term, wokeness as a kind of you've called it a pagan religion. Why do you think it has been so seductive to people, and why has it succeeded stealthily and then I think in full blossom over at least the past 2 decades at conquering pretty much all of academia, pretty much all of the legacy press, and we could go on and on and on? Why has it been so effective if it's so morally corrupt? Today, I mean, just today, like as the Bibas children were being buried with their mother in Israel at Barnard College, you know, one of the most expensive schools, one of the most elite schools in the country, you had students taking over a building, basically, you know, covered in cheering for Hamas would be a polite way to put it. How does that happen?
Well, there's the pagan.
So we don't have Trump live yet. We do have this one video where Trump's meeting Zelensky.
Pretty close. Pretty shut. He's all dressed up today. President Trump, what's your message to auditors, sir? President Trump, President Trump, thank you very much.
So they just met. That was like 20 minutes ago. Yeah, I imagine they'll go live soon. I have to be out by 12:30, so I hope they are live in the next 30 minutes. If not, might not be able to stream it, but that's what we have with Trump and Zelensky right now. In terms of the broader markets, again, we are still holding up pretty nicely. Robinhood at 50.30, Nvidia 122, Rklb 20.3, Tessie 290, AMD 100, Roblox 63, Palantir still not green yet. I think it went green slightly at 84.5 for a second. Now back to red, down 1.2%. Bitcoin 84, SoFi 1450, Meta 662. And the S&P, even with that Atlanta Fed reading of contraction for Q1, is up 0.5%, which to me signals that they either priced it in or they didn't really care that much about that reading. That's kind of how I'm interpreting their perspective on this right now. But we don't have Trump live yet right now. Not yet. Yeah, dude, this is weird. It might take some time. Someone said Jensen did an interview with Fox Business. Did he? That would be something to watch. I'll link the Karp interview for those that want to watch it here. It's still a very long interview, and if you want to watch it on your own, you can, but we still have like 60 minutes left of that interview. So I'll link it here. For those that want to watch it, you can watch it. And hopefully we can get Trump soon and see what he's saying. Word of the day. Yeah, let's do word of the day as well. Let's get that out of the way. Oh, wow. Well, word of the day is kind of consistent with maybe what Trump's going to say with Ukraine. Propitiate, I think.
Propitiate.
Yeah, to placate or make peace with. The company issued a public apology to propitiate its disgruntled customers. The ancient sailors would make offerings to propitiate the sea before setting sail. Maybe this mineral deal that they announced today will propitiate some level of peace. But I guess we're going to see later once they talk. Dude, it's interesting though, right? Markets are actually holding up, even with that Atlanta Fed reading. And that's a nasty reading. I think there's more nuance to it. I think if it was actually as bad, markets would have tanked immediately. But someone always knows, and I think a lot of this was baked in when it comes to the justification for why we're going down -1%. Like, it's not because people are losing their jobs. It's not because inflation is ridiculous. It really feels like it's because of imports, and there's going to be less need for exports in Q1 because everyone's stocked up in Q4. Is that a legit reason for a reaction to a quarterly decline? Not really, but it is a reason. But markets are not really that affected by it, at least not today.
Oh, Elon did do another Rogan podcast. Is that out? I forgot. Elon on Rogan. That's probably coming out later today. I'm pretty sure they're going to talk about Doge. That's going to be the big thing they'll probably discuss. That's going to be a long one, too. Yeah, maybe end of February buying as well. That could be happening. I guess we'll see by the end of the market close kind of what this looks like. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. The figure video is not out yet. It should be out in like 15, 20 minutes. Dude, I don't know when they're going to go live. I would imagine it's soon, but at this point, there's no read on exactly when that's happening. Yeah, let's get an update from some of the model stuff we talked about yesterday with OpenAI as we wait. And hopefully they will be live soon.
To AI in national security. Our Deirdre Bosa is live at the summit for today's Tech Check. Morning, Dee.
Hey, good morning, Carl. So we're here just as a new phase in the AI race gets underway, giving Stanford and other universities really a place in the running in a way that they haven't had before. And the timing couldn't be more important because on one hand, Stanford just froze staff hiring as it braces for federal funding cuts. But at the same time, new breakthroughs are allowing them to compete with the giants in the space at just a fraction of the cost. Last month, Stanford and the University of Washington created an AI reasoning model for less than $50 in compute credits. It's known as S1, and it's on par with cutting-edge models from OpenAI and DeepSeek. Now, the same approach was used by another university, Berkeley researchers, a month earlier for around $450. So the price is only coming down, and they're able to do this through a technique called distillation that DeepSeek pushed into the spotlight. This is the process of compressing large AI models into smaller, more efficient versions without sacrificing performance. And it's not just academia, the tech giants are doing as well, but it flips the prevailing narrative of the last few years right on its head. And it makes OpenAI's latest model a major outlier. GPT 4.5 was announced yesterday. Sam Altman calling it a giant, expensive model that isn't reasoning and will not crush benchmarks. Its pricing, astronomical. Cost per million output tokens is 15 times more than GPT 4.0, 10 times more than Anthropic's most advanced Claude, and a staggering 370 times more expensive than Gemini Flash 2.0 per million tokens. Really begging the question, guys, who is going to pay for a model that even Sam Altman concedes does not push the frontier? What it does do, though, is it keeps OpenAI shipping. It can say that, keeps it in the lead in some ways, and it may justify Project Stargate, the OpenAI, SoftBank, Oracle JV that's earmarked $500 billion for GPUs and data centers. Now, even so, this wasn't enough to keep NVIDIA above water. Yesterday, shares fell some 4%, recovering somewhat today. It's possible, and this has been a possibility for a long time that I know we've talked about, the market isn't buying OpenAI's bet on ever larger, costlier models, especially when universities like Stanford are proving that cutting-edge AI can be built for a lot less. And certainly that's going to be among some of the discussions today, guys.
Can't wait. I look forward to the coverage today, Dee. That's fabulous. Deirdre Bosa joining us over at Stanford. By the way, don't forget to tune in to CNBC's interview with Chicago Fed President Goolsbee. We'll also be live from that.
We do have some news that just came out. So she was talking about the models, again, some of the same stuff I was talking about in the morning in regards to OpenAI and the lack of progress in the models, but the expensiveness of the models, which is one of the things people were confused about. We did get some piece of news, guys, and I don't know if this is real, but I think it is. Palmer Luckey just tweeted something. CEO of Anduril, or founder of Anduril. And it's a list with some redacted names. And one of the names on that list is Jason Calacanis. And people are saying this is the Epstein list, which would be a little crazy if that's actually true.
this would not be the best situation for Mr. Calacanis. And that I don't know if it's true yet though. And Matt Grimm, another guy who works at Anduril, he just tweeted, "This is the face you make when your weekend just got a little bit more complicated. We see you, Jason." Anduril people obviously not a fan of Jason given his beef with Palmer Luckey. Now, granted, is this actually the Epstein list? Like, and how did Palmer Luckey get access to this? Is this a different type of list? I don't know, but everyone's assuming that it is. I don't know. That would be pretty. Dude, talk about if you guys haven't chronicled the Palmer Luckey Jason Calacanis beef over the past couple of years, that is a beef. It is a pretty big beef. And if Palmer Luckey ends the beef by revealing Calacanis is on the Epstein list, yeah, that would be pretty freaking wild. Again, that just came out just now. I'm getting a bunch of messages of it already, and I was like, holy crap, this is pretty aggressive. For those that don't know what the beef is, we can watch this while we wait as well for Trump. Trump did not talk yet, guys. As soon as he talks, I will switch to it. Hopefully, they said 12 p.m., so maybe the next 3 minutes, but we can watch this while we wait. Palmer Luckey definitely has some beef with J. Cal.
That prioritizes popularity over principles. What I'm about to do is in very, very bad taste, but I'm going to do it anyway. Yeah, we'll see. One of the people who I think embodies this type of NPC thinking of going with what's popular and not being willing to ever reverse their position even when they're proven wrong is Jason Calacanis. Let me read about some of the things he said about me over the years. Just a small sampling. Palmer Luckey, hideous. What an idiot. A moron. This guy, Parker Luckey, a complete and utter moron. Jesus, this kid is an idiot. Palmer Luckey is just an idiot and a troll. He is dumb. So dumb. Oh no, we got to keep going. For him to pull the plug on the Palmer Luckey experience was brilliant. Kudos, Zuckerberg. A complete lack of moral character and leadership. Palmer Luckey, a complete moron. Palmer doesn't care about any of his employees, family members, or team members. Now, this doesn't include any of the lies that he's told about me. This doesn't include any of the lies he's told about my businesses. This doesn't include any of the terrible things that his co-hosts and guests have said about me over the years that went unchallenged and egged on. If I'm a hideous, stupid person with no morals who doesn't care about my family or my employees, I shouldn't be invited here no matter how relevant Ukraine is. He's had many chances to retract or apologize to these statements. And rather than taking any of them, he keeps telling people that the reason I won't be on his show is because I'm too thin-skinned, because I disagree with him on some of the things he said about Oculus. That is not the case. I've explicitly told him why I've refused to be on his show. It's because he and his crew of bullies have been vicious liars who have attacked me for years and berated me for years and spread lies about me for years in a way that I've been able to overcome that very few entrepreneurs would have the money or the resources or the credibility to do. And being nice to a few people, like I'm sure he's being nice to you, does not excuse this. This isn't debatable whether it happened or not. It clearly happened. These are all direct quotes from things that he said over the years, both while I was at Oculus and during my time after Oculus. And Jason, like many influential people, some of them even in this room, who have treated me like shit for years, suddenly changed their tune as soon as Anduril was on the upswing, as soon as we were doing good things. They started inviting me on their podcasts, liking all my social media posts, putting me on their innovator lists, all without any acknowledgement whatsoever that they were the ones that were attacking me when it was popular, kicking me while I was on the ground, and treating me like garbage. It's really pathetic because a lot of my remaining critics at least are basing their opinions on some kind of consistent worldview. A lot of other people are attacking me and the work that I do because it's popular. When it's popular to attack me, they attack me. When it's unpopular to attack me, when Ukraine is being attacked, they are suddenly friends. And those are the same people that I know are going to go back to shitting on me the second that it becomes popular again. I'm coming to the end of this, and I know that you guys are probably thinking, wow, This guy's pretty thin-skinned for a billionaire. That's fair. That's fair. But I want to remind you of something. Jason and the people like him are the reason I was fired from Oculus, my own company, the company that was my heart and my soul for my entire teenage and adult life. For him, it was a game, it was his show, and for me, it was everything, and I lost everything. It almost destroyed me. I'm still filled with rage about it. I always will be. I'll end with this. I was able to create Anduril because a small group of people were willing to give me a second chance, to let me build something great in an important but controversial industry that was being constantly berated by people who thought we lived at the end of history. They invested in me while Jason was trying to poison my career and keep me on the ground. Thank God he failed. Thank God for investors who ignore him and people like him. The market conditions suggest there are going to be a lot of founders, hopefully none of the people in this room, losing their startups over the next year or so. And I pray that they get a second chance like I did. I pray they aren't deterred from working on important but unpopular problems. I pray that they will successfully claw their way back to success, that they aren't deterred from working on things that really matter. I pray that they manage to do this despite the inevitably stupid and spiteful hot takes that Jason, his associates, and the many people like him who make money spewing bullshit are certainly going to be putting out there. Amen. Thank you.
He did that in front of Jay Cal at the Olin Summit 2 years ago. So obviously he's not a fan of this guy. And now he's tweeting that he's on the Epstein list. I mean, dude, that is pretty wild. Obviously, Cal Canis is going to have to respond to this pretty quickly because, I mean, if you don't respond to this, like, you know what everyone's assumption is. So that is going to be something we're going to need to hear from very soon. In terms of Trump, he should be going live now. He's not live yet. It's 12 p.m. I would imagine he's going to be live soon. I know I've been saying that for 20 minutes, but hopefully he is. And here's an update on what they've talked about so far at the White House.
Office right now as we speak, and we're getting some information. Earlier in the last hour, I told you to watch for the question of whether or not this deal is more than just minerals. We're getting a wire flash now from reporters in the Oval Office suggesting that it is. Vladimir Zelensky just told reporters, we see this as a good deal for LNG terminals as well as minerals. So that's the first indication we've gotten on the record that there is more to this deal than just the minerals, Carl. It also includes LNG. So that's one thing to watch for. I'm also going to watch for what the implications are here for oil and gas more broadly, pipelines, port infrastructure as well. How much of that revenue under this deal is going to go to the United States? All of those details still haven't been released yet from the White House. So we'll look for that once this signing ceremony is over in a short time. Carl, back over to you.
Our eyes and ears today, Eamon. Thank you. Eamon Javers is outside the White House watching that meeting with Zelensky. Meantime, take a look at shares of Autodesk.
So it looks like there's going to be more to this thing than just the minerals deal. And I guess we'll see. S&P up 0.29. Everything's still green. I still don't trust it yet. We got a couple hours left in the day to see if it holds on. Not as green as it was about 30 minutes ago, but still green on the day. Tesla as well, 288, NVIDIA 121, Rklb 20. Rklb really came from the bottom of $16 to go green. Hood 5042. And then you got AMD right here at 100. It is really funny about Rklb though, dude. Like that was a nasty decline yesterday and in the pre-markets. And within about 20 All right, I'm back. Dude, I don't know what is going on. If the aliens are here, I literally have to use my phone because nothing else is working, which is kind of ridiculous. Like, I don't know what's happening, dude. I don't know if like there's something wrong with our internet on the whole block or something, but you guys can see me now, right? Yeah. Dude, what is going on, bro? The audio's bad. I think we're ending out the stream here, dude. It's like not connecting to any of the internet. The internet just died out. I feel like it died out on the whole block because that's very weird. I have not had my internet die out like this in a long time. Why did the bricks stop? No, the bricks, you just don't look at that part, dude. The bricks don't stop. You just don't. Oh no, is the internet back? Hold on. Is it back? Hold on. I'm about to go on my computer. I think it's about to be back. Are we? Okay, hold on. I think we're back. All right, hold on. I'll be back. We're back. Bro, what was that, dude? That is so bad, bro. Oh my gosh. What is happening? I think that was an internet thing, but I don't know why that was an internet thing. Am I muted? No, I shouldn't be muted. I should be good. Okay. Doge are cutting tables. Yeah. Doge are cutting tables. Oh my gosh. All right, guys. I think we got to end it here. This thing is not cooperating. It is not cooperating at all. It's like it's getting frozen again now, right? Like it's just being stupid. Yeah, it's like being really dumb. I don't even have a ton of tabs open. Like I don't know why it's being like this, but yeah, I think that's it. I don't even think we'll be able to stream Trump. I doubt this guy's going to go live anytime soon. Trying to actually stream this live correctly, it usually takes hours since they're never on time, so it's working fine now, but if I open up another tab, like let me see if I open a tab right here. I hope it doesn't freeze out because that's what it did just now when it freezed when I opened it. It's good. It's good. That's so weird, bro. That's so freaking weird. Oh my gosh. Well, I guess we see if this gets better. DeepSeek hack. Dude, that was annoying. That was like, I pay for good internet, bro. Our internet is not bad. That's like that was an internet thing. That wasn't like, and I wonder, was that like across the entire block? Like everyone's internet shut off for a little bit? Because that was a weird internet glitch. Yo, someone said Emit's on the list, bro. You guys are crazy. Someone said ice rated Emit, dude. You guys are wild, bro. Goodness. Oh boy. Starlink, yeah, maybe we do need Starlink. All right, guys. I don't know when Trump's gonna go live at this point. I mean, markets are holding up, S&P's up, Robinhood's up, Nvidia's up, but I don't know when Trump's gonna go live. So I think, I don't know. We just eventually will catch it on the close. But he's not live yet. If anything, dude, I don't know if they're going to say anything different because we got all the headlines from the journalists already about what he's going to say. And that's why I think markets are pumping a little bit right now, which is that there's going to be more than the mineral stuff when it comes to peace. Is Zelensky actually going to agree to some type of peace? Probably not. But if they have any resemblance of it, then maybe that's what gets the market excited. But it's not live yet. Yeah, Robinhood's doing good. Robinhood's doing good. 50.75. If we get back to 51, that would be nice. NVIDIA right here, 122. Tesla, 290. And then Google, 170.59. Yeah, it's already spazzing out the internet. I can't even stream him. So here's what I'll do. I'll put up the Figure podcast right now, if I'm even allowed to log into this because the Wi-Fi is being weird. I'll put the link for you guys right here in the chat, and you guys can watch it. See, it's freezing again, right? Like, it's being really stupid. It's like lagging, freezing, all that stuff. All right, here we go. I'm going to make it public right now. It's live. And here is the link for everyone who wants to see it. It's live now. And you guys can watch it. Trump is not live yet. Trump is still not live yet. Yeah, Trump is still not live. Not yet. I don't see him live. You guys see him live? I don't see him live. No, he's not live yet. Hold on. Trump speaking. Where do you guys see him? I don't. No, he's not live. Where do you guys see him live? He's not live. He is nowhere. How, okay, so where is he speaking? Where? It's not on any of the news channels. Is it on the White House page? Trump White House. He's not. Okay, everyone thinks he's talking. No one's telling me where he's talking. So where are you seeing that he's talking? If you see he's talking. Or now you guys are fucking with me, bro. That's the problem. You guys are trying to make me stay, bro. You're fucking with me. You're fucking with me. He's not live. Losing my mind today, bro. Wi-Fi, dude. Freaking crazy. All right. Anyway, I gotta leave in 15 minutes anyway. He's on X Live. No, he's not, bro. He's not. Hold on. Let me check now. He's not on X Live. Because they'd be on YouTube if they were on X too. Yeah, he's not. He's not. He's not live. The White House is not live. Anyway, this is worse than the muted, bro. Anyway, there's the podcast. It's out right there on YouTube with Brett. You guys can watch it for the next hour. I'll be back on the market close. Let me know what you thought of the podcast. And yeah, that's it. We'll be back. He's live singing, bro. Goodness gracious. All right. What a day. It was kind of red, now kind of green. Hopefully Trump doesn't say anything crazy that keeps green. We'll watch some of the clips on the close and see exactly what he says. But as long as it's more peace-oriented, maybe that's a good catalyst as end of. There's the pod. You guys can check it out. I am out. I will see you. All right. Where I'm ending the stream from my phone because of how bad this is. I don't know what's going on with the Wi-Fi. This is ridiculous today. I don't know what's happening here, dude. I don't know if this is something happening in my neighborhood or something, but all right, guys, I'm out. I'm ending. I can't even end the stream on my computer because that's how bad the Wi-Fi is. So that's it. This is this is stupid, bro. Like, what is happening today? Why is this happening? Like, is something wrong with Verizon or something? Everyone's buying Verizon stock and the freaking Wi-Fi can't work. Like, what is this, bro? We need to do more vlogging and streaming, like from a POV type of thing, just like me walking around my neighborhood or something. I think that would be a good idea. That'd be more fun. But yeah, that's weird. That's weird. All right, I'm out, guys. I'll be back on the market close. I'm sorry for the technical difficulties, but it's being stupid right now. So, all right, guys, don't worry about the bricks peeling. That's because I didn't install them correctly, but the bricks are still very real bricks. All right. I'll see you guys on the market close. Bye, everybody.